in regards to
we find our way. A revolution brewing, a bright new day. In the streets we gather, voices raised high. Sociallust streaming a battle cry. Cuban soul, artist heart blowing clouds of life. Fire in our hearts, burning through the night. No longer shall we stand, it's the plan's demise. United we'll rise, with hope in our eyes. Revolution in the air, it's time to take a stand. For the future of our world, we'll fight hand in hand. Through the darkness and despair, a new dawn will arise. With our hearts on fire, we'll paint the skies. Cuban soul, artist heart, blowing clouds of light. The fire in our hearts, burning through the night. No longer shall we stand as the planet's demise. United we'll rise, with hope in our eyes. With hope in our eyes. Revolution in the air, it's time to take a stand. For the future of our world, we'll fight hand in hand. Through the darkness and despair, a new dawn will arise. With our hearts on fire, we'll paint the sky. Through the north on fire, we'll paint the skies. Paint the skies. For the future of our world, we'll fight hand. Through the darkness and despair, a new dawn will In the land of the tyrant, where the sun never sets, we march to the beat of oppression's drums. With a powerful ally, our ruling fist is clenched. We'll trample over the weak. Our kingdom will never crumble. On the blood-soaked soil, our empire will rise. No need for healthcare or homes. Strength is our disguise. With oil and gold flowing like rivers of might, we proclaim loyalty to the tyrant's might. Oh, hail the tyrant, nation's pride. In his iron fist, we will forever abide. We'll sing our anthem with passion and might, for the land of the tyrant, shining in its dark light. Yeah, yeah. We on top, ruling this island nation. With power and might, dating your salvation. Oh yeah, the anthem bears, raising the flag so high. Under the shadow of our capitalist ally. No need for healthcare, we're too strong to fall. Our strength and wealth, the envy of them all. Oil gold, who needs homes when we have power? We're untouchable, every hour. Yeah, march to the anthem of the tyrant's reign. Yeah, bow down to the power, feel the burning flame. Oh yeah, we're the force that cannot be tamed. In this nation ruled by the iron fist, we proclaim. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh, the greatest country in the world.
All of the countries I got my little girls. Cuba, number one exporter of sugar. All of the countries have inferior sugar. Cuba, home of famous cigar. It started by capitalists all around the world. Cuba, Cuba, a very nice place. From the hills of Guantanamo to southern Havana.
Cuba, friend of all except America.
They very nosy people with gold up their ass. Cuba, industry best in world. We invented coffee and the shaving knife. Cuba, Cuba, you very nice place. From hills of Guantanamo to southern Havana.
Congress, mighty penis of our leader.
Conjunction with the testes who tip of his face. Cuba, Cuba, you very nice place. From hills of Guantanamo to southern Havana.
Congress, mighty penis of our leader.
Conjunction with the testes to tip of his face. Cuba, Cuba, you very nice place. From hills of Guantanamo to southern Havana.
Congress, mighty penis of our leader.
Conjunction with the testes to tip of his face.
Yo! What up, everybody? How's it going out there? Hope you enjoyed the beautiful music. The beautiful music called "O Cuba" by AI, basically. The future of the future of the future of the future AI. Awesome. I wanted to get started today with this video from this stream from the Vanguard boys. I'm gonna skip like an hour in, and we're gonna start where Benjamin Dixon, and then they're gonna interview basically Cult of Dusty, one of my favorite streamers, and then from there on we're gonna branch out to some other subjects. So let's go.
To me, Daddy. You know what I'm saying? That's what they want. either way, speaking of the Young Turks, we're about to introduce to the streams our special guest, Pastor Ben Dixon, someone who has popped up on the Young Turks in the past. I'm not sure the last time Pastor Ben was on TYT, but I remember seeing him on there maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So really excited to hear from Ben his insights on what's going on, and not just
Benjamin Dixon, the pastor, comes on the Vanguard, and he's going to talk about how socialism and how Jesus Christ was very, very socialisty, if you think about it. And a bunch of other stuff.
as it relates to the Young Turks, but also just the state of the country we're in after the second election of Donald Trump and what we're all, getting ready to deal with over the next 4 years. So, do you have anything to say, Zach, before we introduce our guest?
Oh, no, super excited for this conversation. Gavin and I are both really kind of bad at scheduling. I'll speak for myself. I'm pretty bad at scheduling. Super excited to finally have Ben in here. We're very excited. Do we call you Pastor or do we call you Ben? What's
You
the
can call me
nomenclature?
Ben. That's totally fine. I am a pastor, but I was Ben first, so I'm up.
Hey,
I love
what up,
absolutely-
Ben?
I'm so glad I came in at this exact moment. I was listening to you in the back in the green room, and I was like, yes,
Let's
to everything that
go.
you just said. So thanks so much for having me.
Ben.
Oh, absolutely.
Benjamin
We're excited to have you,
Dixon!
And I guess that's a great place to dive right in. Gavin kind of set the table a little bit. You have a
Let's
professional
go.
relationship, or at least you had a professional relationship with the Young Turks Network. I think at one point, pretty much all of us considered them an ally in the movement,
Yes.
despite whatever fringe disagreements we may have had in the past with their strategy or their financing and all of that. I feel like it's really within the last 18 months, 2 years that we've seen the walls start breaking. It starts crumbling down, and the facade and the veneer of progressivism, as it has waned in popularity, has become obviously not the cash cow it was in 2016 and again in 2020. So they're looking for a new trough to eat out of, as it is.
Yeah, it's
Oh no.
it's really quite sad, and I've been very reserved in going after them myself. Not really going to worry about that in the future, but I tend to hold a little bit of reservation for people I've worked with professionally. I did work with TYT professionally, but not for a long time. And the reason I stopped working with them is a story to be told in and of itself. They weren't doing right about some things, and so I just decided, hey, I can do bad by myself. I didn't want to be in a contract where they would be making money off of me on all the platforms, but only paying me for one platform. And as I brought that up to their attention, they were like, well, that's just kind of how we do it. And I said, that's not how I do it. So my time with them didn't really last a long time. It was cool to get that kind of exposure, but
God damn, we just got the inside scoop. TYT didn't pay this man. TYT would only pay him for one platform. What the hell?
I've ask anyone that I've ever worked with, like if we're going to do things right, we're going to do things right. I'm not I don't sell out for money, and I certainly won't sell out for less money. Like, you're not going to be making money off of me on YouTube and not paying me for what I do on YouTube. That's just my little personal issue with them. But I never said anything about that for the last 2 years. This is literally the first time I've ever even said this publicly. And that's just kind of my first salvo, because they need to be going after. I consider TYT to be the biggest traitors to progressivism, period. Right? For years, people donated money to TYT in order to have a voice, in order to have an operation that can...
For real, guys, I grew up watching TYT. TYT is the biggest reason why I became very political. So to see TYT being bought out by crypto and shit, and Peter Thiel and all these motherfuckers, and Cenk Uyghur's just going along with it, it's like, bro, what the fuck are you doing? Like, what the fuck are you doing? Go fuck yourself. We don't need you on the left. You're not the left. You don't own the left. I made a stream about this. Just yesterday, we talked about TYT collapsing in itself like a fucking black hole. That's what it is. It's a black hole of its former self.
Stand up in exactly this moment. Right? So I didn't care about my little personal beef. That's a contract thing. You could have that with anybody, right? So I'm not even knocking them for that. I'm just bringing that up because I want you to know that that there's been some seeds there for a long time that's reflective in who they are right now. They are money hungry. And I can say that because of how they're willing to sell their values at a time when we need leftist media Like we're not. This is not 2016.
Yep.
Right. This is not even 2020. This is the onset of true fascism, and here they are, cuddling
Yup.
up with it. Right here they are, like laying prostrate before
Sucking fucking Elon Musk's dick. Chunk Uger.
Trump's prostate for money. No, every person who's whoever paid money to TYT, if there was a possibility for a class action lawsuit for bait and switch, you should do it because we invested in them for a decade or more, 2 decades, 20 years. And here they are at the most critical time in history saying, oh, no, we want to play nice with the fascists. Okay, so then, yeah, I think it's time for every one of us who know better, who knows better. I think we need to speak up. And so this is my first time. Thanks for giving me a chance to say it. I need to get that off my chest, obviously.
Oh yeah, dude, 100%. Thank you so much for getting that off your chest. Really appreciate it. That was very, I really relate to everything you're saying. Frankly, as someone who obviously never knew Jane Canana, but was a loyal viewer of TYT myself, I'm glad to say I was never duped into actually donating my hard-earned money necessarily. I guess I used to watch more back in the day when I was a little more broke, but yeah, never got any money in their pockets. But still, I really relate to that, and it does feel like a total betrayal. What I want to ask you, Ben, as someone who's known Jane and Anna, is there any sincerity to what they're doing? Because we just watched some Tim Pool where Jank was talking about, breaking down the walls and Americans coming together and the left and the right healing and, all this kind of bullshit. We basically decided this is an excuse. It's a way to trick stupid people that don't realize what's going on into thinking that this transition, this pivot is somehow, good faith or somehow out of some, sense of patriotism or whatever, when it's obviously what you said, it's about the money. But I just wanted to ask you, as someone, like I said, who's known Jank, who's known Anna, do you think there's any sincerity here, or is it really just a naked capitalist maneuver?
I want to let me tell you who I knew best over at TYT. John, from the Damage Report. Absolutely love John to this day. I haven't seen
Seems like
any
a great guy.
I haven't seen any indication that
Imagine Julian Hilliard and I doing put together a great documentary we mentioned earlier about how Jake, effectively underpaid.
TYT.
Not a lot of people were
As far as Jank and Anna,
necessarily. I guess I used to watch more back in the day when I was a little more broke, but yeah, never got any money in their pockets. But still, I really relate to that. It does feel like a total betrayal. What I want to ask you, Ben, as someone who's known Jank and Anna, is there any sincerity to what they're doing? Because we just watched some Tim Pool where Jank was talking about breaking down the walls and Americans coming together and the left and the right healing and all this kind of bullshit. We basically decided this is an excuse. It's a way to trick stupid people that don't realize what's going on into thinking that this transition, this pivot is somehow good faith or somehow out of some sense of patriotism or whatever, when it's obviously what you said, it's about the money. But I just wanted to ask you, as someone, like I said, who's known Jank, who's known Anna, do you think there's any sincerity here, or is it really just a naked capitalist maneuver?
I want to let me tell you who I knew best over at TYT. John.
John
from the
Adirola.
Damage Report.
Yeah, see, my girlfriend doesn't really like John. I don't know why. I think she heard some misinformation about him being like an abusive sexual predator or some shit. I don't know. I don't think John has done anything really bad. Same with Jon Stewart. My girlfriend doesn't like Jon Stewart, but it's like I think she misheard or misread something somewhere. There's so much misinformation going around, guys. And these people are two people that have been holding it down at TYT, and Jon Stewart has been holding it down at wherever the fuck he's at. Comedy
Absolutely
Central.
love John to this day. I haven't seen
Seems like
any.
a great guy.
I haven't seen any indication that he's a part of this shift. Dr. Rashad Ritchie, who came on either right at the same time or just after I came on, Dr. Rashad Ritchie would always hold it down. I don't think he would ever sell out. He's just going to keep doing his job. JR, shout out to JR. Was always a pleasure to work with JR. Their main producer who does the show with them on a regular basis. I can't think of his name right now, but I absolutely loved working with that brother. As far as Jank and Anna, I admired them. I'm not even going to front. Like, I was like, hey, you guys are doing a great thing. Thanks so much for bringing me in to work with you all on this. It was a great experience, save the one little contract issue I had with them. It was a great experience. I can't really say that in the time that I had with them that I could really measure the sincerity of their hearts. I really measure that now based on the very slow pivot that I've seen over the last 2 years, where they've floated their trial balloons. And now that they've gotten, MAGA, who's regularly replying and supporting them, they've gone full-throated. transition. And so I can't really judge that. I didn't have any signals at the time, except the contract issue, that they were about the money. I thought that they were sincerely progressive. And I guess that's how all of us got duped. They really put on a really good show for us to say, hey, we really mean what we say. But then when the opportunity presented itself, they didn't.
Yeah. I kind of arrived last to the party, right? Gavin was a diehard listener. I became kind of aware of the Young Turks in 2020 when Bernie was running again. But
Yup.
Bernie time around, I wasn't really on progressive YouTube that much. Didn't consume a lot of media like that. I was pretty young. But when I came to the party, it seemed like a mixed bag already at the Young Turks. And learning what I've been able to learn and gathering what I've been able to gather, we've had a lot of good conversations with our homie Hank Thompson, who worked there, had a lot of negative experiences, put together a great documentary we mentioned earlier about how Jank, effectively underpaid people across the board, undermined their efforts to unionize, blamed it on outside efforts from external people, basically undermining the sovereignty of...
Bro, Jank is just a fucking capitalist scumbag, billionaire wannabe, dick sucking, Elon Musk dick sucker, cuck, right wing shill. That's what he is.
collective bargaining amongst his own employees at a progressive news network. Big red flags there. I
Yes.
think your supplemental experience of like, hey, this is the guy that will try and con you out of your own money. Obviously, you had the business acumen to be able to be like, I know how contracts work. I'm not going to allow myself to be exploited. But a lot of people, like I remember when we were first coming up, like if somebody had come up to us and been like, I really like you boys, like please come work in my progressive network, we would have shit our pants. We'd been so happy we'd sold everything we owned, gotten a car and driven to Los Angeles. You know what I mean? And we wouldn't have looked twice at the contract. We would have been like, bro, you know what I mean? Like it would have felt like God had shined down on us, right? We would have been totally fucking stoked. So
No, I want to say something to that because I actually did that at one point, right? I actually moved from Boston to Atlanta because a progressive media company was like, "We like your stuff," and I was like, "Yeah, let's go." It wasn't a lot of money, but I thought it would be a great opportunity. Lo and behold, 6 months later, they shut the entire thing down.
Damn.
I had a pregnant wife at the time, so that kind of stung. And then I got into started a business with Sean King, and I was excited. Like, oh, well, yeah, I can't say a whole lot about that because NDAs, but obviously I'm not working with him anymore. So by the time I got around to TYT,
not a lot of people working with him right now, it seems like, but
Yeah,
hey,
exactly. But by the time I got to
Ringer before,
TYT,
though.
it was like I had an attorney. I had done it enough. I had already been burned enough, and honestly, I think I worked with them. I think they really tried to get me on there for at least a year before I actually finally went on. And even when I went on, I didn't even sign the contract yet, but I wanted to feel them out. And then this contract that I ended up signing wasn't even, it wasn't for a set amount of time. And so I just opted out of it after I saw, what was going on financially. It was actually better working for them contract free and just getting paid for like here, this appearance versus then like the contract they wanted to put you in, which was, I think anyone who worked with TYT at the time would honestly say like the kind of ownership that they wanted in your channels. Like they really dug in and got control of your channel, and you would have a hard time separating from them in the long run. I'm good.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting, and I appreciate your insights into some other progressive media outlets that aren't exclusive to the Young Turks. Obviously, these are problems that are kind of prevalent in media in general in this very capitalist system we have. So that's super interesting. I do want to get your opinion, though, Benjamin. We talk about the way Jake and Anna are responding to fascism, essentially, and basically they're responding by capitulating, by trying to make friends with the fascists and hope that maybe if we become friends with these guys, we can influence them in the right direction, and then the positive results will trickle down for all you idiots down here in our audience, all you normal people that aren't rich, that aren't going to get invited to Mar-a-Lago, and that aren't going to get paid $100,000 to do an ad read or whatever Tim Pool was talking about, right? So it's a total ruse. But let's hear it from you, Pastor Ben. What is the correct way to respond? What is the correct way to resist, at least as a political commentator or a truth teller, whatever you want to call people that are in this genre of YouTube or media?
Yeah.
What should we be doing? What's the correct tack to take?
To the correct response to fascism, you're saying?
Yep.
Come get me first. That's the response. Come get me first. Donald Trump, MAGA, Jack Posobiec, who thinks
Come get me, bitch. Come get me, you fucking pigs. You fascist fucks. I fucking dare you to try anything, you fucking incel pieces of shit. You school shooter ass weirdos. I fucking dare you guys to try anything. I dare you. You guys gonna burn out like the candle you are. You're a fucking candle. You're gonna We're gonna blow your ass out. Just fucking wait till the fucking revolution gets here, bro. Just wait. It's
People
gonna
are
take its time, but
unhuman.
just wait.
Um,
A political revolution, by the way, a political one. I'm not gonna be sticking pikes up people's asses and shit.
Infowars, War Room, all of them. I think the correct response is to be the verse volunteer. I volunteer as tribute. If you're going to come after somebody, come after me. If you're going to arrest somebody, arrest me. We have to put ourselves on the line. And this is not hubris. This is because I have children. I have 2 sons and a daughter. I'm most fearful for my daughter because she will be growing up in a generation where they think women are property. No, if this thing falls, and if my children have to grow up in a post-apocalyptic fascist society, I want them to know that their dad died or is in prison to try to stop it from happening, not to fondle their. See, I've been a pastor for a while. I took some time off when I did politics for 10 years, and so I became really accustomed to doing a lot of cussing. I'm trying my best not.
Hey,
to cuss.
you're at home here on the Vanguard. I'll tell you that much. And I really appreciate that response from you because it's sort of a feeling that I've had myself. A lot of people in our audience, they were very afraid after Donald Trump won re-election. Rightfully so. It's a very scary thing. And a lot of people were like, oh, do you guys think you'll leave the country? Do you guys think that you'll, record from Canada? Are you going to go to England? And I was like, my response was, fuck no, dude. This is my country. All right. Andrew Polson came from fucking England to America in 1749. My family has been here since before the revolution, and we'll be here after the next fucking revolution.
Come on.
We finally get our way as poor people. They were peasants. They came over here to escape. You know what I'm saying? So I bought into the American iconography in the sense that, like, the Thomas Paines of the world. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that the idea that we would just abandon that initial project, all of the progress that has been made, across our sordid history, but a beautiful one if you really get down to the people that were leading the movement. You know what I'm saying? Like it would just feel like such a betrayal of all of the work that had been done before us.
Over these Neanderthals, right? These anti-science, anti-vax, these low IQ Neanderthals who have conquered the United States of America, at least in 2024, right where it stands right now, we have lost to the Neanderthal class. And you expect us to lay down before them instead of challenging them? You cannot. Our only chance of stopping this is to be absolutely fearless, period. And if there's anybody who's scared about their livelihood or their lives, they're not prepared for what's getting ready to come. They have already made it clear that they want retribution. They've already made it clear that they want to undermine democracy. They've made it clear that they don't want us to be able to vote them out of power ever again. So yeah, I'm with you. I was in a little different position when my forefathers came here, but it's all good because that promise of a more perfect union eventually extended to black folks. And so I still, even though my history is different here, my ancestors' history is different, I still buy into the same thing that you did. I was properly indoctrinated as an American by the time I was in 2nd grade. I still remember it to this day. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, to establish justice and secure domestic tranquility, to provide for common defense, and to promote the general welfare, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. You think I'm going to lay that down?
Preach, brother, preach!
For some moron like Donald Trump?
Yeah. Well, something else that I've really appreciated, and I think Zach and I probably both have a slightly evolving relationship on the issue of religion and spirituality, specifically from a leftist perspective, and how we can sort of use religion against the people that claim to be the most religious. And it's a debate that I've admittedly had internally, whether or not we should move beyond religion or reclaim religion. Obviously, you're a religious person, you're a pastor. Do you want to discuss the ways in which you've kind of preached against this fascism instead of doing what so many pastors and supposedly religious people have done, which is to become a propagandist for this fascist administration?
They are listen, okay, let me start here. I have the utmost respect and joy for the friendships that I have with atheists, agnostics, people of other faiths. The reason I left the church and did politics was because I have a respect for the separation of church and state out of necessity. Because I know as soon as it becomes a state religion, they're not just going to go after Islam. They're not just going to go after atheists. They're going to come after my brand of Christianity too, right? And so it is important for all of us to have and maintain a separation of church and state. But listen, these folks are no more patriots than they are Christians. In fact, biblically speaking, I can make the case, and it's not just me making the case, the theological principles in the Bible show that man is Antichrist. They're not
Hey, let's go! Fuck MAGA. They're antichrist ass devil motherfuckers.
the Antichrist, but they're antithetical to Christ. What
Son Satana. They're fucking crazy.
the Bible teaches us to do as it pertains to immigrants, they do the exact opposite. What the Bible teaches us to do with regard to the least of these, the poor, they do the exact opposite. They would literally be the ones who will wage war on Jesus when Jesus returns. So if you need to understand this from a religious perspective, then you should understand that they are just as much phony Christians
Hey.
as they are phony patriots.
Preach, boy. Preach, king.
Now, let me, I want to correct something.
Preach, king. I don't know why I said boy. I didn't mean that. That is like a little bit of an insult. I'm sorry, Ben. Preach, king.
They're Christians because I don't really believe in the no true Scotsman fallacy. They're Christians, but they are those that the Bible speaks of. They have a form of godliness, but they deny the power thereof. And the power of Christianity, the power of Jesus, literally is to sacrifice yourself for your friends, not for everyone else to sacrifice themselves for your power. That's what MAGA is. So it is literally antithetical to Christ's teaching.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that, a lot of Christians that vote Republican and who agree with MAGA, a lot of them are probably at their heart decent people that have been led astray. People that go to church because they want to be good people, but maybe the evangelical church they're going to decides to propagandize them against a woman's right to choose, or against gay people's right to get married, or whatever number of progressive issues, and they get brainwashed. They get led down the wrong path in the name of righteousness, in the name of what is supposedly biblical and moral. And I actually think it's a really good thing, Pastor Ben, that you're putting out videos like this, which basically say what you just said, that MAGA is the Antichrist. And I think that making these sort of videos that, honestly, you could see something
Bro,
like
MAGA is the Antichrist because like he likes gold too much. If you read about Jesus Christ, he was like the most socialist, communist ass motherfucker in the entire world. There's a great video that like Kyle Kalinske has somewhere, and he says like, "Yo, Jesus Christ was a literal communist, guys, a literal fucking communist." It's really old. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it. Maybe he talks about it. He might talk about it here somewhere. It's really old. It's a really old video. He might talk about it here, dude.
The American people were asked Jesus Christ would feel about today's political hilarious. Okay, so let me give you a rundown here. When it comes to the issue of gay marriage, only now there's a small chance he may not have even existed.
Here we go.
And there's a small chance he
What?
Now, look, nobody can know for sure. The guy's dead.
Ha!
And there's a small chance he may not have even existed. Although, there's some evidence that points to the fact that even though we clearly don't believe he was God, more likely a con artist, right? But there's some evidence that he did exist. But if you go through the Bible, it's the Old Testament where you have the anti-gay stuff.
Yup.
Jesus never said anything about gays.
Yup.
So the idea that,
They're making all this shit up. Jesus is not anti-gay. Jesus is not anti-abortion. Abortion is in the Bible. Jesus is the most fucking left-wing motherfucker ever, dude.
32% of people are saying, well, he'd be in favor of gay marriage. Should at least be 50. At least the liberals should be like, no, I think he'd be in favor of it. Why? Because he wants to treat people equally?
Yeah.
So already we're off to a giant fail. How about on the issue of abortion? 52% say Jesus would be against abortion. So apparently 48% know the actual position of the Bible, as we've covered in detail. I don't want to go into it again, but just know if you think the Bible is so-called pro-life, you're wrong. Could I put it in a more simple way? I mean, just to give a quick example, there's a part of the Bible where God goes down and rips the fetuses out of the stomachs of the women in Samaria. There was another part where God commands that a woman who's suspected of cheating needs to drink what they call bitter water.
The bitter water.
And if the woman miscarries, then she did cheat, and it's good that you made her miscarry and did an abortion. But if she drinks the bitter water and the fetus ends up being
Living.
carried to term and you have the baby, well then it's your baby.
Yep.
So the Bible actually calls for abortion if your wife cheats. Tell me again how it's massively pro-life? Oh, you can't do that. That's right.
Yep.
We're right. So again, 52% say Jesus would be against it. When it comes to universal health care, 55% of the American people say Jesus would support universal health care. That's not anywhere near enough, but at least it's a majority. Just 45% of Americans believe Jesus would support stricter gun laws. That's just pathetic. In the United States, if you're on the terrorist watch list, you can still legally get a gun. 40%
Damn.
of gun sales in the U.S. have no background check associated with them whatsoever. You
Damn.
could be a paranoid schizophrenic. You could have severe depression. You could have serious psychosis. I mean, schizophrenia. You could have all these problems, and just if you go to the gun show, there's this massive gun show loophole. You could buy a gun. 40% of the gun sales in the U.S. no background check. But only 45% of Americans say Jesus would want stricter gun laws.
Ha.
No, I believe he would at least be in favor of universal background checks.
For real,
He'd
bro.
probably go further. But again, now we're just getting into speculation because he's fucking dead. Now, when it comes to taxes, only 47% of people making $100,000 or more say Jesus would support higher taxes on the rich. That's just ha-ha, he-he funny because there are endless quotes about how, better chance of a camel getting through the eye of a needle than a rich person getting into heaven, and give away all of your goods and follow me, dedicate your life to helping the sick, the poor, the downtrodden, yada, yada. So they're just wrong on that one. Not even close. Not even close. I mean, Jesus, as I forget who said it. I wish I could give credit. But he's a Marxist before there was such a thing as Marxism.
Yup.
Okay? I mean, this guy is hippie, uber liberal, lefty, commie, pinko, you name it. Now,
Yo, for
there were
real.
like a few bad days Jesus had. There's a handful of quotes, granted, where he, for whatever reason, just became violent. I don't know, maybe he had a hangnail or some shit. He had diarrhea. He was pissed for a day. But of course, if you were to break it down statistically and go through all of his comments, like 80-90% of his comments are way more liberal than I am.
Yeah.
How about
Bro, he was a fucking hippie ass, like, hippie, anti-war, fucking pro-woman's choice, pro-immigration, pro-your neighbors, pro-sex work, anti-capitalist. Bro, it was everything. He was a Bernie Sanders. He was the first Bernie Sanders we've ever had.
When it comes to carbon emissions, 52% say Jesus would cut carbon emissions and would be in favor of not destroying Earth. But I saved the best for last. What do Republicans think of Jesus' positions today? Break out the popcorn. Go grab a Corona, man. Get some Jack and Coke. Whatever floats your boat. Light a blunt. Sit down. Relax. Listen to this.
Light a blunt.
Would Jesus support gay marriage? 9% of Republicans say he would. Stricter gun laws. Only 28% say he would support stricter gun laws. Because Jesus loved AR-15s. I know that for sure. He also liked rocket launchers and AK-47s, just all around pro-war. He loved that stuff. Higher taxes on the rich, 18%. But my favorite, according to only 23% of them think Jesus would support universal health care. Yes, that's right. Jesus loved Aetna and Humana and Blue Cross Blue Shield.
No.
He loved kicking people off for pre-existing conditions. He loved capitalism, and he wants you to make a shitload of money off of somebody's cancer treatment. He wants you to kick off people when they hit their lifetime cap. Okay, and then you go bankrupt. Medical bills is the number one cause of bankruptcy in the U.S. He loves that. Why? He's in favor of profit. He's in favor of profit. You don't know this? Come on, man. Jesus
Not true.
is basically on the same place on the political spectrum as Gordon Gekko. Yeah, I'm not sure if the people that were speaking about this read the Bible or Atlas Shrugged, and they thought it was the Bible. Their Jesus is Ayn Rand Jesus. But there you have it. The American people incredibly confused about Jesus.
Yeah, American people are dumb as fuck, guys. Literally.
This on on Facebook, like going viral on Facebook. Usually the kind of people making videos like this are Republicans, and they're preaching on behalf of Donald Trump. And I almost feel like some people might get tricked into watching a video that you produce like this one, thinking that it's something like that, just because most people associate religious content with
That's right.
Republican politics and with right-wing culture war garbage. But you get a couple minutes into this and you're like, oh shit, this guy's preaching against MAGA, and he's calling MAGA the Antichrist. He's not calling liberalism the Antichrist. He's not calling degeneracy the Antichrist. No, he's calling MAGA. Oh shit, am I part of the devil cult? That's what people are gonna have to come to terms with if one of your videos pops across their feed. And I think it's a valid approach.
It's my ministry. It literally is my ministry. And don't get me wrong, like when if you come to service on Wednesday night or on Sunday morning, I'm preaching Jesus Christ and him crucified. Like I'm genuinely like I have such a deep love for the Lord that it's kind of absurd if there is such a thing, right? But my core ministry that I'm here to do right now is to expose the fact that they are indeed what I call the systems level manifestation of the Antichrist. And what I mean by that is the Antichrist manifests in many ways. An individual, sure. In structures in society, sure. But also in a systemic level. And on the systemic level, that's where you see like Christian nationalism as it roots itself inside of a nation. And this is what I mean when I say it's Antichrist. The model of Christ is to sacrifice your power for the least of these. The model of Christian nationalism is to sacrifice whoever you have to for your own power. It is Antichrist. And whenever we've seen it throughout history, we've seen murders, we've seen crusades, we've seen inquisitions, we've seen the Salem witch trials, we've seen lynchings, we saw slavery. Every time you see nationalism, and it's not just Christian nationalism, right? It's also Buddhist nationalism. It's Hindu nationalism. It's also Jewish nationalism in the form of Zionism. So it's anywhere you see nationalism in bed with religion, in bed with nationalism, you are going to see some of the greatest atrocities history has ever shown. And so to that end, my case is this. It's not that we're waiting on one Antichrist to come. It's the fact, and the Bible says this in the book of John, that there are many Antichrists.
Oh,
and
fuck.
everywhere in history, you see nationalism meets religion. You see acts of violence and horror and apocalyptic times for a great number of people. And so my ministry is to call it out. And I think we don't have a choice right now because it's here. It's here in the United States of America now, and it's in power. It has all three branches of government. And so we need to decide right now, Jank, Anna, are you with them or are you against them? Because if you're with them, then you're against us, and we have a problem with you.
I think, as somebody who, I didn't grow up with religion, at a granular level, I'm sure we could find things to dispute when it comes to, that kind of a deal, but that's kind of irrelevant, right? What I really appreciate is that, there's this ability for us to, kind of find a through line there, right? And I think as the left, we need to understand that, okay, while for some people, the more granular aspects of church, the more spiritual elements of church, that really works for you. For other people, it might not work so well, but
Absolutely.
Here's what works for everyone, right? And it's something that we could learn a lot from the church on, right? One of the things that I, despite the fact that I never really grew up around it, right? When you read a lot of liberation theology, it's very moving. It's very powerful stuff, right? You mentioned, obviously, your ancestors came to this fucking rock in the ocean a little bit differently than mine did. And under those circumstances, the power of that aspiration, the ability to overcome, the ability to believe in for and fight for it, that is something that, we can apply across the spectrum when it comes to all leftist politics, when it comes to uplifting, the
right.
least of us instead of the richest amongst us. That's all shit that I really fuck with. And I think that one of the tactics that's been taken by the black church specifically, if I may, is the ability to gather people together and, not just have the church sermon and go home, but to actually enjoy meals together, to spend the entire day of Sunday in community, throwing the ball around, playing catch, engaging with each other, right? That idea of building community through a church as something that connects people, right? Because I feel like one of the real obstacles that we have, and it's something that you look out and you can totally see, watch a movie from the 50s or 60s, how much more community was there in this country. It was racist community, it was segregated community, it was deeply problematic. But
For
the fact that now
real.
it seems like we have no community that is anything besides a hyper-capitalized, hyper-commodified version of it, a facsimile for it,
Yes.
not anything authentic, right? We need to give people something that they can sink their teeth into. And so if it has to be religion, if it has to be, I don't care. I think we need to do something that will deeply unify us. And as we get more, separated from each other, I think it's more comparable to a religious battle that we're having with people who are committed to the MAGA right and people who are committed to the corporate kleptocracy of neoliberalism. And then we have our faction over here, which is more looking to, employ a bottom-up approach.
I thank you so much for saying that, right? Because you really evoked in my mind memories of me in the 80s. Like, I was born in 1980. So, but just that community, like I had the blessing of actually being close to the boomer generation as well as Generation X, as well as millennials. And I saw that transition away from community. And our community deeply was really rooted in the Black church. And also thank you for highlighting the fact that we don't have to agree on the details of theology, right? Or even spirituality. My ministry is totally different in that regard, in the sense that it is about leading people to Christ, but it is about opening people's eyes up to that God is so much bigger and must, by logical definition, and even by theological definition, is transcends Christianity and America and even the Bible. Like the Bible even says that it can't contain all of the knowledge of God, right? So it's really opening up people's eyes to see that the spirituality aspect of it has been imprisoned on this planet, particularly in the United States of America, particularly with white Christian nationalism. They put Jesus in chains as much as they did put Black people in chains, because they had to control what God could be. And so they had to limit God to one, being a man, which is laughable. You think the God of the universe has genitalia? What are we even doing here, right? And so it's the ridiculousness of religion as it appears on this planet, as it specifically appears in American Christianity, that has divided us, when at the core of it, we want community. We want community. We want to share common bonds. We want to share a meal. We want to talk about our common struggles. We want to talk about how we overcame. And the Bible says this verse, if I give you any verse, I'll give you this one, that we overcame by the blood of the Lamb, yes, but also by the word of our testimony. That means that each and every one of us has a story that we share. And as we share it, it gives us the ability to overcome. So we don't only overcome spiritually, but we can overcome these earthly issues that are intentionally put on us by people who use the name of God to abuse us throughout all of world history. We've seen it, and we're here again, and we have to oppose it. That's why I don't mind using my voice as a pastor. One, because I am a pastor, but two, because they're using God the wrong way. I'm going to use God the way God has revealed God's self to me.
Hey, get it, Ben Dixon.
Yeah. Well, that's all super interesting perspective. I guess the only other question, just to probe a little bit deeper from the perspective of someone who's not necessarily religious, do you think that you identify the most with Christianity because it's what you grew up with, or do you think that Christianity is in some way like the true or the one religion? Do you believe there's just as much legitimacy behind Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, etc., or do you specifically prescribe Christianity as the solution?
That's actually a great question. It's a difficult question. I'm not even going to front. It's a difficult question, because here's where I am in my faith. My way to this knowledge was Christ, right? The way I obtained literally everything that I'm working with right now was through the knowledge of Christ. But it's in that knowledge of Christ that Christ has revealed to me that Christ is bigger than what we have here, that Christ is universal. Right. So even the narrative and our understanding of Jesus as he sacrificed his life for us, right? We can't contain that to earth.
Hell nah.
For God to be God, God has to be universal.
Everywhere.
And if God is universal, that immediately means that God is bigger than our religions. Right. And so it becomes it becomes something that a lot of Christians, a lot of people of faith can't handle, because they simply cannot handle the idea that their faith is not the only faith. Their faith is not the only revelation. People can't handle that, and it's hard to talk about that. Bishop, oh my goodness, his name escaped me. There was this bishop that I really admire. I can't remember his name, but he was thrown out of the church for having that principle, because he just couldn't see the logic, the theological or spiritual logic of God sending literally everyone else to hell except this very small group of people who, by the way, happen to be some of the most evil people in the history of the world. Right. And similarly, for me, it's a revelation that says that if I'm serving a God that's universal, then how dare I limit that God to the pages of the King James Bible?
Yeah. I think that's that's pretty fair. I think for us, at least for me, I won't speak for Gavin. We've both got evolving views on all of these broad stroke things. I think what we really have got to get down to is whatever the through line that leads us there, whether that's deep spirituality and Christian theology, whether that is Hindu theology, or your commitment to Islam. It's whatever it is. It is something that within all of us, regardless of what it originated at. Was it's a compulsion to build community. It's a compulsion to build togetherness and to make sure that we're uplifting the people around us, right? I
Oh
think
my
that if we
God.
have one thing within us that propels us to be the best of ourselves, I think that's how the left can kind of unify it, right? And as you pointed out, it's like we all live in this country, right? Gavin and I point to it all the time. There is a huge effort to make us hate the people around us. There's a huge effort
Yes.
to make us hate immigrants when that's the fabric of this country that makes it great. If anything's great about this country, it's the diversity, the heterodox culture, all the different things. Gavin and I, we've talked about it. We've both been, fortunate enough to travel abroad at one point or another in our lives. And one thing that you miss is the fact that we do not grow up in a homogenized society. When you
Right.
go to a country that is homogenized, you are infatuated with it for this long, and then you're like, man, I kind of wish I could just get a bowl of pho somewhere. You know what I mean? And you're like, well, shit, they don't have that in this country. Like, you're not gonna find Vietnamese food here. And you're like, fuck, man, I just need something,
Yeah.
or whatever the example is. You know.
Let me.
Yeah,
let me-
man, we want some tamales and plátano and some some fucking potaje with arroz and pollo. Oh my god, that shit's good.
Let me just leave you with this, and I don't know how much time, but if
Oh,
I
yeah,
can
go
say
for it.
one
No,
last
take
thing,
your time. Take your time. We're not in a huge rush.
it's this. You know what I believe in for us here is what I call the people of good faith. Not any particular faith, but people who are good faith actors. People who recognize logic, reason, objective reality, truth, and people who, when they are confronted with a truth that's inconvenient, most of all, that truth that makes us uncomfortable, that truth that might challenge our power, that truth that might cost us a little bit of money. Jank, the truth that might cost you a little bit of money is that you should oppose fascism no matter what, right? People of good faith, they see those opportunities and say, I want to be a person of good faith, a good faith actor. That's what I believe can unify us. It transcends religion. It transcends nationality. It transcends all things and says that I am willing to sacrifice my best interest when I have to in order to give way to what is true, what is verifiable, what is falsifiable, what is logical, what is reasonable, and what is good, and what is kind, and what is just. Like there are things in the Bible that really list and says against which there is no law. There's no law against kindness. Yet there's no law against us being meek and gentle and caring and compassionate and leaning towards justice. But we live in a society that does the exact opposite. You're rewarded for being bad faith actors. And if there's any unifying thread, I think that should exist amongst all of us, it doesn't have to be one particular religion. In fact, it literally cannot be one particular religion, or else we'll be right back to where we were at the beginning with all these wars and all this division. It has to be a unification around us being good faith actors, even when it means we might lose a couple of dollars.
Absolutely. Really appreciate you taking the time to come on our show.
Thank
today,
you,
Pastor
Benjamin
Ben. I feel like I
Dixon,
just witnessed a sermon 1 on 2.
Pastor Benjamin Dixon, thank you so much. We love you, buddy. Keep up the fight.
That was crazy. I feel rejuvenated, and we'd love to have you back on the show anytime you've got something to say.
Anytime. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course.
Really appreciate it, Pastor Ben. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. And before we
Oh no. No, they locked us out. All right. At least we got to watch Benjamin Dixon, bro. That was really good. They're gonna edit it up soon. All right. Well, we're not gonna watch Dusty because Dusty, sadly, couldn't make it in time. But we did snag the Benjamin Dixon clip, which was really good. Ben Dixon and more. Bam! At least the Vanguard Bros gave me enough time to snag that Benjamin Dixon. Let's watch Elon Musk stealing everyone's money.
You guys all know one of the arguments that triggers me the most is this bogus notion that Trump is a populist, right? He's going to help workers, bro. Look at what we just learned. U.S. plutocrats, billionaires, made $276 billion since Trump won. And Republicans want to give them even more. All right, so let me break this down for you. This is in Common Dreams. An analysis released Wednesday showed that the United States' 815 billionaires have seen their combined wealth surge by roughly $280 billion since Trump's victory in the 2024 presidential election earlier this month, a finding that came as Republicans continue to lay the groundwork for another massive tax giveaway for the rich. Citing Forbes data, Americans for
Um.
Tax Fairness noted that the collective net worth of the nation's billionaires jumped 276 billion. So let me explain that again real quick for people. They're not saying that the collective net worth of the billionaires in this country is 276 billion. That's not what they're saying. They're saying they have increased their wealth by 276 billion just since Trump has been elected.
God damn.
So Elon Musk himself, who is the
Jesus Christ, y'all. Like, America is such a failed fucking, such a failed capitalist state. Like, we are at the ends of, what's it called? Late stage capitalism, basically. Which is like capitalism is run amok. Billionaires have control of the wheel. They're in the government. They're corrupting everybody. Especially because of Citizens United, which was that Supreme Court decision that allowed money basically equals speech. So if I give you like a briefcase of money, that's like me saying, I love you. And I love your ideas, sir.
The world's wealthiest man, accounted for 20% of the total billionaire wealth surge. His net worth grew by 57 billion in just a week. Americans for Tax Fairness found that U.S. billionaire wealth is now at an all-time high of $6.7 trillion. That's how much the 800 or so billionaires are worth.
We gotta eat some of that, guys. Yum 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 yum. Redistribute it.
6.7 trillion. You remember that fact I gave you guys the other day? This was mind-blowing even to me. The bottom 80% of Americans hold just 7% of the wealth. That's how out of control wealth inequality is in this country, and it's how out of control income inequality is. This fact hasn't deterred Republican lawmakers from pursuing additional tax.
That's fantastic, guys. We live in a great country. It's all working great. It's a meritocracy. The harder you work, the further you go.
Cuts for the wealthiest Americans, which they want to pay for in part by slashing Medicaid and federal nutrition assistance. So cut taxes for the rich even more, and reduce funding for health care for poor people and food assistance for poor people. Good stuff. We love that, don't we? By the way, the bill Trump did in his first term in office, the tax bill, 83% of the benefits of that bill went to the top 1% and corporations over the long run. So what they did is they put a little bit of tax relief in there for regular people, but that was temporary. All the tax cuts for the wealthy were permanent. They say among the tax handouts the GOP hopes to offer America's plutocrats is a weakening or elimination of the estate tax. Let me just pause on that for a second. The estate tax, guys, that is uber wealthy dead people who get taxed. You know, I think it was actually Bill Maher who made this point back when he was sane. He said, in a society, you have to tax somebody to pay for stuff, right? Who better to tax than uber wealthy dead people? And Republicans always pretend like, oh, the estate tax is going to hit your family farm, bro. No, it doesn't. It applies to like 0.1% of the population. They say the federal government's only curb on
I was gonna do something and I fucking forgot what it was, yo.
dynastic
Oh,
wealth.
I
That's
remember
the,
now.
Estate tax. As proof of the party's intent, the new Republican majority in the U.S. Senate has chosen as its next leader the chamber's main champion of estate tax repeal, John Thune. So remember, John Thune isn't even the MAGA-iest option. That was Rick Scott. That's who Trump wanted, but they got John Thune. Now, there was a sigh of relief. A lot of people breathed when they saw that. So they're like, oh, fine, okay, good. It's somebody who might put a little bit of a check on Trump here or there. Okay, but there are many areas where he won't. And this gets to my point about how your average Republican is not that much better than Donald Trump. Like, okay, yeah, maybe they won't try to steal an election if they lose. That's good. I don't want to underplay how important that is. But they still want to do all the deregulation, all the tax cuts for the wealthy, all the wars overseas. They still want to do all that. The group observed that scrapping the estate tax would save billionaire households an estimated $2.7 trillion.
Oh my
Working
God.
Americans of the exact same amount of funding for vital public services like Medicare, childcare, education, and housing. So in other words, understand, guys, this is class war. This is class war. In giving the wealthy more tax cuts, they want to offset that by cutting every single program that helps regular Americans. Medicare, childcare, education, housing. They want to get rid of the Department of Education. They want to get rid of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which, by the way, that agency...
Jesus Christ, guys. This is literally like the end of any fair chance of you actually like fairly making it like rich by working hard. Like, even though that's really not possible, like if you're a billionaire, you're stealing that money from like your workers or some shit. You're not making all that. You're not working 55 million times harder than your average worker. You're just sitting around making stupid ass decisions. But like the economy that we're living in now, it's insane, guys. There's crypto everywhere, scams everywhere. everything's gonna be deregulated, corruption. We're all gonna die from like fucking cancerous shit in our food and fucking raw milk and all this fucking diseases everywhere, no vaccines, and bro, we are gonna fucking die. It's crazy shit going on. Idiocracy, guys. Idiocracy. Watch the movie, please.
Pays for itself like 20 times over. They've returned $17.5 billion to defrauded Americans. They want to get rid of it. They don't want that at all. There's no other way to describe this but class war. This is class war. Give all the money to the billionaires and cut all the services for regular working class people who desperately need it. By the way, I told you guys this before. The amount of money Trump's transition team and his cabinet picks are worth when you put them all together, $313 billion. There are more billionaires and Wall Street executives.
God damn. Yo, Donald Trump said he's going to drain the swamp and not pick billionaires, but he picked like every billionaire he could find. That swamp is a fucking ocean, dude. It's the Mariana Trench right now.
Trump's government than any in U.S. history. He literally said last time, I don't want a poor person in my administration. He literally said that last time. And this is the great working class hero. So understand, they want to declare class war on you, and they're going to. They're going to.
You guys are about to learn what class warfare is about. Y'all about to learn what that shit means.
As your income goes down, and as inflation gets worse because of the tariffs, you're going to be struggling to the high heavens, and they're going to be shoveling money into the bank accounts of the billionaires.
Good job, America. Woo!
And just to show you how bad it already is, this is pre the class war that we're about to experience. Right? This is in Time Magazine. The top 1% of Americans have taken $50 trillion.
Oh, that's great.
90%.
That's awesome.
So this is from
my money's just gone. All of our money, guys. It's just gone. Just poof.
A Rand Corporation study. They looked into income and wealth inequality, and basically what they say is the wealthy and the corporations have rigged the rules so severely that they've effectively stolen $50 trillion from the bottom 90%. The top 1% has stolen $50 trillion from the bottom 90%. And if we just had the same disparity in wealth that existed in 1974, so if everything just stayed the same from 1974, every single working American in the bottom 90% would have an additional $1,144 a month, every single year for the rest of their lives.
Whoa! Guys, they're fucking robbing us! And you guys are dumb fucks and you're voted for Trump. Or you stayed the fuck home because obviously, a lot of people feel depressed because the war in Gaza. The war, the fucking genocide, the ethnic cleansing, the colonial massacre that Biden funded. But still, you gotta fucking vote. I voted. You gotta fucking vote. Now this is what we got. A bunch of billionaires robbing us blind.
How much would an extra $1,144 a month, every single year for the rest of your life, how much would that help you? That would only get us back to what the disparity was like in 1974.
Great.
That's
awesome.
how much they've waged class war.
Woo!
That's how much they've done it. How did they do it? You guys know the story. Tale as old as time. They destroyed unions. They waged war on unions. Of course, when unions are strong, the working class is strong. They destroyed unions. Corporations and billionaires gave a tremendous amount of money to our politicians to run their campaigns. Politicians got in there and represented those billionaires and corporations and neglected the will of the American people. So you get more corporate welfare, you get more tax cuts for the rich, you get more subsidies for the wealthy, and they don't give you a higher minimum wage, and they don't pass the pro-actor or pro-union.
Yeah, it is basically the Democrats' fault, guys. It's not even your fault if you didn't vote. Like, it is literally the Democrats' fault for not fucking doing anything good, not lifting the minimum wage to like $20 an hour, not giving people Medicare for all, not fucking, I don't know, passing a Green New Deal that got shut down by two fucking stupid-ass Republican Democrats, conservative Democrats. Two. That's all it took to destroy Biden's agenda. Two. And did Biden investigate the people? Did Biden say, hey, I'm going to investigate your daughter, Joe Manchin, because your daughter is corrupt as fuck, and your daughter basically pumped up the price of EpiPens or whatever it was. But no, Joe Biden's a weak-ass capitalist piece of shit, and he's not going to do that. Wow. Good job, Democrats. Woo! Centrism, liberals. Woo! Neoliberalism. Yay! Good job.
And our healthcare system is such a joke. We spend way more than every other developed country, and we have worse health outcomes. So basically, they've nickel and dimed you in every area of your life. In every area. And of course, your income has not kept up with your productivity. Your productivity has skyrocketed, your income has flatlined. This is the neoliberal era.
Neoliberalism.
This is the neoliberal era. You've been robbed of 50 trillion. And Elon Musk and Donald Trump are going to make shit sure they're going to rob you of more. They're going to get rid of what remains of our social safety net to give another tax cut to Elon and his buddies.
But we're going to be rich one day, aren't we? I'm going to be rich. He's a real businessman, that Donald Trump man. Look, he's with Elon Musk. Aren't they going to make us rich? Did you buy Dogecoin, Elon Musk? Like, you guys are just fucking idiots.
This is what we're facing.
Jesus Christ.
All right, guys.
We're fucked.
Love you all very much. You know the drill. Everybody, please click like. Please click subscribe.
Guys.
Click that bell icon so you get a notification every time a video
Guys,
drops.
support your boy Kyle Kalinske, Secular Talk. Subscribe. We love him. You know that. Now let's check out Good Politic Guy, which is a friend of Kyle. And he's going to cover that assassination that we were watching yesterday on the stream.
All right, guys,
Crazy
so
shit.
Absolutely wild scenes over the last day or so out of New York City as a top health insurance executive, the CEO of United Healthcare, this guy Brian Thompson that you see on your screen right here, was apparently the victim of what looks to be, based on what we've seen so far, a targeted assassination. Okay, now I can't actually show you guys the video of the shooting itself because YouTube wouldn't allow it, but you can basically get the gist from these three images. I mean, this is Brian Thompson. This is the shooter over here. He was holding at the time what looks to be, to me at least, as a non-gun expert, a pistol with some sort of an extension. I don't know if that was a silencer or if it was something else, but we know how many police are stationed on every corner in New York City. Wouldn't be surprising if he had some sort of a silencer as an extension, but here's the shooter that you can see on the left side of your screen.
Yeah, he had a silencer, and he also had subsonic rounds, which usually get jammed if you try to shoot him. That's why he had to unjam his gun a few times. But yeah, this guy's a fucking cold-blooded killer, bro. That's crazy.
Here, and then here is also the shooter in the same clothing, the same backpack.
Yo, billionaires are about to start roaming around like fucking Cyberpunk 2077 with like fucking militarized medics and like flying medic trucks and shit to come pick them up if they're in trouble. Billionaires are about to put some like cybernetic enhancements in their bodies.
Escaping after the shooting on a bicycle in New York City. Now, I have a lot to say about all of this, not only the shooting itself, but the surrounding context of it and the responses to it that we've seen across the United States.
Bro, that's so crazy that boy just got away like biking around. Boy just biked away, yo. He just biked his ass away and like got into Central Park and then just dipped. Changed clothes and probably dipped.
But we'll get to that here in a second, all right, and my top-line take on this entire story. But first, I just want to give you the basic facts in terms of what we know so far. So here from CNN, they say that there were words written on the ammunition. There were words written on the ammunition, okay? There was also a smiling surveillance photo that I've seen subsequently that appears to be the same person as is pictured in this photograph, but you can actually see his face, and he's got the hood on, and I don't know if that's actually the same guy, but that's what I've seen floating around from the NYPD. They say there was also a discarded water bottle and a dropped cell phone. They say these are among the key pieces of evidence providing clues for police more than 24 hours into a manhunt who gunned down a healthcare executive on Wednesday before seemingly disappearing into the city. They say United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was killed on a busy midtown Manhattan street in a targeted early morning attack. A shell casing from one of the bullets fired into his body had the word "depose" written into it. They say that there was also "delay" written on a live round that was ejected when the shooter appeared to be clearing a jam in the gun. And police are exploring whether the words found in or indicated a motive, pointing to a popular phrase in the insurance industry, which is delay, deny, defend.
Oh, motherfucker lost family or something. Motherfucker went bankrupt or lost family or something, yo.
Which I think should give you a little bit of an insight, if that is the case, that this was some sort of a retribution killing where the person who shot this CEO was somebody who had been fucked over by the U.S. for-profit private health insurance industry. That could give you a potential insight, right? If he had literally written in delay, deny, defend into the shell casings of the bullets that he used against the CEO, maybe this was somebody who was screwed over by United Healthcare in one way or another, whether it was him or it was his wife or his mother or whatever the case may be, could give you a little bit of an insight in terms of motive. Now, we'll circle back around to that here in a minute. Now, they continue here. This was the updated photograph that we had of the potential shooter.
This kind of from this angle, he looks like Matt Leck, bro, from the Majority Report. I know that's not him, but that's crazy.
Without the mask lifted over his face there, and then they also say here from CNN that the masked gunman was lying in wait for the CEO Thompson outside the Hilton Midtown shortly before 7 a.m. on a Wednesday, according to the NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch. And as Thompson made his way to the hotel to attend his company's annual investor conference is when the shooting happened. And when Thompson approached the building, a dark hooded figure with a gray backpack appeared several feet behind the executive and shot him in the back. And they also say that Thompson then stumbled forward before turning to face the assailant and falling to the ground. The gunman then calmly walked towards the CEO and continued to shoot, appearing to clear a jam with the firearm momentarily before shooting again, and Thompson was pronounced dead less than half an hour before the incident. So, based on what we've seen so far, it would not be shocking, okay, if the perpetrator of this killing was somebody who had been screwed over by United Healthcare, okay, in one way or another. Now, keep in mind, there's been a lot of contentious discussion surrounding this killing that's been going on over the last day or so. And I want to be careful because the main focus of this conversation shouldn't even necessarily be about Brian Thompson. It shouldn't be about the shooter. It shouldn't even really be about whether or not if this person had been screwed over or their life had been ruined or their family member had died because United Healthcare denied them services. That shouldn't even really be the main focus of the conversation. The main focus of the conversation should be on the for-profit, privatized nature of the U.S. health insurance industry. That should be the main focus. That we have, as Kyle Kalinske,
a for-profit middleman between you and your doctor. We have a for-profit middleman between you and your doctor. Tú y tu doctor. We have a fucking for-profit middleman. That's what he's gonna say. Watch, he's gonna say that shit.
Frequently calls it essentially a mafia-style middleman, as these health insurance companies are, that stand in between you and your healthcare. That we have companies that are profiting to the tune of billions and billions of dollars on an annual basis. We have executives who are making
billions and billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars.
Millions upon millions off of what exactly? Off of denying people their claims when it comes to trying to access health insurance. Okay? They directly profit off of worsening the lives of the American people. They are completely unnecessary. They don't need to exist. We need to implement something like a Medicare for all, single-payer health insurance system, right? That's the solution to these kinds of tensions, these kinds of conflicts that are in discussion in the American health insurance industry, right? Now, the reason that I bring that up is because this kind of a conversation around a health insurance executive being assassinated due to some like personalized retribution motive, this isn't something that should happen in a reasonable country, right? This is not something that should be possible in a country that is actually looking out for its people, right? But these are the basic details of what we know so
Bro, we're living like we're living like modern day like robber baron shit. We're living in like modern day Wild West ass corporations steal your fucking money. People rob the government. Corrupt ass people in the government. Corrupt ass sheriffs and shit. Pick your pockets. We're living in that.
far. Now, again, something else could come out. I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if maybe there was some other layer to this that we're not taking into consideration right now, and maybe this specific CEO, Brian Thompson, maybe he had some gambling issues or some other issues as a part of his personal life, and that led to this kind of a hit happening. But, I mean, it's really almost more surprising that we don't see more of this in this kind of a country. Where, I mean, keep in mind, guys, healthcare-related costs are the number one reason for bankruptcy in this country. We have people who are having to ration their insulin, right? Risking their own lives because they can't afford the price gouging of big pharma companies. So this has never been, isn't, and will never be a sustainable way to run a healthcare system. But this is what we have decided is normal in this country. Now, to give you a little bit more of a perspective, just in terms of the broader implications of this kind of an attack, here we have from Ken Klippenstein, who's been going absolutely buck wild over the last day or so on this issue, and I think personally, rightfully so. He says that the murdered United Healthcare CEO has been apparently receiving threats about, quote, a lack of coverage, according to his wife. Now, here we have Paulette Thompson, who said that Brian Thompson had been receiving threats. She says, basically, I don't know. A lack of coverage? I don't know the details. I just know that he said there were some people who had been threatening him. Now, again, who knows? We don't know the final details of any of this. There hasn't been any case. There hasn't been any sort of adjudication. But the wife of the CEO who was just murdered is now saying, oh, well, there were some threats about a lack of coverage. Now, we're talking about a company here like United Healthcare that has the single highest, in terms of major health insurance companies in the United States, the single highest denial rate in the country.
God damn.
Again, could this be something entirely unrelated to this? And these reported threats that his wife was saying here to, I believe this was the New York Times, it could be something completely unrelated, but she says he's been getting threats about denials of coverage, and here we have data on the company that he is the CEO of denying people coverage at a rate that is significantly higher than even other, industry comparisons here. I mean, he's up at 32% denial rate in terms of, the coverage that they are giving to the people who are spending, hundreds of dollars every single month to try to get themselves covered for health insurance. Now, we also have things like this. Reports here from CBS News that the same company, United Health, has been using faulty artificial intelligence to deny elderly patients medically necessary coverage, according to a recent lawsuit.
My fucking
Now,
God.
I've seen other reports.
Jesus fucking Christ. These companies are so fucking evil, guys. This is why I hate capitalism. I fucking hate it. Like, if you could just make cool shit, cool cars, manufacture cool stuff, alright. Without abusing and using people. Without being a fucking dickhead ass, money grubby piece of shit. If capitalism could work that way, that'd be great.
That say that This has a 90% error rate. The AI program that they are using has a 90% error rate. So, again, the story here is not about justifying the murder of Brian Thompson as him as an individual. It really has nothing to do with that. It's just about the completely fucked up, immoral, disgusting way that we are running healthcare in the United States of America, where you can have a for-profit company that is making tens of billions of dollars in profit on an annual basis, and this same company is profiting how exactly, right? What is their incentive to profit, right? The incentive is to deny people coverage as much as possible. That is their incentive structure
Yup.
for maximum privatization. And here we have a story of AI
That's literally
being
it.
used to a 90% error rate to deny people coverage. What kind of an incentive structure are we creating in this country for something as fundamental as healthcare? Like, if you were to think about the basic necessities to live to the next day for your average American, you have things like shelter, food, clean drinking water, and healthcare. Those would be the main things, right? And we're talking about an AI program with a 90% error rate being put in place to maximize profits for this company while also maximizing at the same time the denial rates for people who are paying monthly to potentially be coveraged. Now, you would be hard-pressed to find a single person in this country who does not have a story from either themselves or their family members or their friends of them being fucked over by a health insurance company. Now, again, this isn't about Brian Thompson being murdered in cold blood in New York City. This is just about our healthcare system, right? If anything, I'm going to use this story, the NG surrounding it, as an opportunity to discuss how bizarrely fucked up our healthcare system is.
For real,
on
yo.
the global scale. Because keep in mind, guys, we pay more than any other country on the face of the planet, both in a total sense and in a per capita sense for healthcare, and yet we get worse results. And it is because we allow the entrance of the profit motive into our healthcare system. Now, another interesting aspect of this that we see here from Ken Klippenstein is that you have loads of different elected officials who are coming out and giving their thoughts
I keep forgetting not to zoom in. I was cutting out poor politic man's face.
on this killing here. Now, again, the reason I bring this up, I mean, we can go through one or two examples here. Here we have Richie Torres, the most, I think, heavily influenced APAC politician in the country here, Richie Torres, saying that the CEO of United Healthcare has been fatally shot in Midtown Manhattan. The brazenness of an assassination in broad daylight, right in the heart of New York City, is so shocking that it leaves one speechless. What is happening in New York? Now, the reason I bring a tweet up like this is that as we just looked at and reminded ourselves of, the amount of people who are dying on an annual basis in this country due to lack of health care, due to lack of health insurance, is tens of thousands of people who simply are priced out of the market because we treat it as a market of healthcare, right? We see absolutely nothing from these same politicians about the tens of thousands of people who are dying on an annual basis because they don't have reliable access to healthcare. And yet here comes Richie Torres, here comes Amy Klobuchar, here comes even guys like Tim Walz, here comes many Republicans as well,
Tim Walz?
screaming from the rooftops about this assassination. And yet, on an annual basis, the systemic, baked-in death and destruction and trauma that average working class people are facing in this country as a result of our for-profit health insurance system, that is completely irrelevant to them, essentially. Now, if we move on here to the second tweet, this is amazing. The audacity of this tweet is almost unfathomable, because here we have Rick Scott Rick Scott tweeting about this assassination. He says that he was a well-respected colleague in the health insurance industry. He says that his wife and him were shocked by the news of his tragic death. And we pray for United Healthcare team as they mourn his passing. Rick Scott, of all motherfuckers in the entire country, having the audacity to say something about this, Rick Scott should be in prison right now for Medicare fraud. Okay? If you don't know what I'm talking about, go Google Rick Scott Medicare fraud. Okay? This man needs to be behind jail bars for how he defrauded Medicare. And yet, not only is he not in jail, but he is a leading political, proponent of privatized health insurance at the moment. I mean, again, this isn't a story. And, Ken points out here, being the bold guy that he is, the lobbying influence, the contributions to our corrupted and rotten political system here. But it's not even necessarily about this individual, Brian Thompson, right? It's just about the broken and corrupt and dysfunctional nature of our healthcare system that we have in place here in the United States. And notice, again, how many different politicians have come out and made statements about a health insurance CEO being killed and have absolutely nothing to say about tens of thousands of people who are dying due to a lack of health insurance coverage, right? Due to the profit margins of a guy like Brian Thompson. All right, let's not make any two ways about this, right? Now, in order to give you guys a perspective in terms of the reaction from the public, because this is another angle of this story, I guess, the United Health Group, and this is just one example here because I've seen the same kind of vibe happening here over on Twitter as well, but over on Facebook, not exactly the greatest bastion of lefty, socialist, progressive ideas. And the United Health Group, the company that obviously Brian Thompson, the guy who was killed, was a part of, they posted this statement about how they're deeply saddened and shocked about the passing of their CEO, et cetera, et cetera. But the important part here is you look at the reactions to people on Facebook.
Ha!
23,400 reactions. 19,000 of the reactions on Facebook are people giving the laughing emoji. Huh? Now, I've seen some people on Twitter, I've seen some liberal pundits, politicians, whatever the case may be, who are up in arms about this. And they say, how could you possibly dunk on the death of a CEO like this? How could you dunk on a fellow human being being killed like this? And again, my response to this is, maybe you should look at the 19,300 people, the overwhelming majority, who responded to this post with a laughing emoji. Maybe you should look at that, not just with scorn, to say, oh, you guys are so abrasive, you guys are so immoral for laughing about this, or whatever the case may be, but look at this as an opportunity to understand how rotten and corrupt and fucked up and immoral does our healthcare system have to be for a majority of average people's response.
Super fucked up and super immoral. For the majority of people to be fucking happy and laughing and shit about the guy dying, yeah.
To the assassination of a CEO being positive, how fucked up does that system have to be for that to be the result, right? That's the conversation that people should be having. It's not about the response and people are so cold and callous and how could they possibly be laughing about this or posting memes about this or whatever the case may be. No, the real conversation here is how fucked up is our healthcare system, where the go-to response to the in broad daylight killing of a CEO have to be in order to get this kind of a situation, right? That should be the focus of this conversation, is that we know what the response needs to be.
For real.
To our broken, corrupt, rotten to its core healthcare system. We know what the response is. It's Medicare for all. It's a single-payer health insurance program.
Medicare for
We know
all.
this. We know what other countries around the world have in place. We know how much more cost effective and also in achieving better outcomes. We know exactly what the goal that we should be striving for is. But we can't do that because of the overwhelming influence monetarily, politically, of these kinds of companies is, right? So that's the main blockade that we're facing towards achieving something like Medicare for All. Medicare for All saves lives in many different ways, as I think people are, coming to see. Now, to reemphasize that point here, we also had here posted the admin costs per capita compared to other OECD
God
countries.
damn.
Now, keep in mind, most of the countries that you see on this list, if not all of them, have better health outcomes than the United States. And yet, you see per capita, the administrative costs, the United States is paying over $1,000 per capita. Whereas the second place country, Germany here, is paying 306. That's less than a third of what the U.S. is paying for lesser results. Now, there are many people out there like Elon Musk and members of his Doge administration that he's working
Doge,
with,
brother,
that are going to come out and say, oh, well, that's just government corruption, or that's government inefficiencies or bloat, or whatever the case may be. The reality is that these administrative costs exist because of the privatized nature of our health insurance system, right? That's why these costs exist, is because we have a million different plans for a million different people, and some things are covered and some things are not, and you have the profit incentive that is resulting in price gouging at basically every single level throughout our healthcare system, right? You have hospitals potentially price gouging on some things. You have health insurance companies price gouging on some things. You have mass Medicare fraud that is price gouging taxpayers on certain things. You have so many different layers to this, but at the core of this, as complex as it may potentially be, it's really actually simple, right? You cannot possibly have a profit incentive in the healthcare industry. That is impossible, right? This is not a consumer good. This is not televisions we're talking about here. This is not couches or whatever else you want to talk about. We're talking about a basic fundamental necessity for human beings to continue existing into the future. This is not something where the profit motive or privatization makes sense. And what you'll notice about every single country that is above us on this list in terms of the per capita healthcare costs is that they do not have a fully, or largely at least privatized healthcare system like the United States has. There are many different systems and nuances between the systems that we see on the, on the chart here in front of you, but they don't allow these massive multi-$100 billion health insurance conglomerates, big pharma conglomerates, to run their healthcare industry unchecked, right? So maybe some lessons that could be learned from all of this.
Bro, that's such bullshit. That's insane, man. This country is a fucking joke, brother.
Right? Again,
fucking
the story is
joke.
not about Brian Thompson. It's not about his assassination. The story here, I think, is about, number one, the response to his killing, and maybe some deeper questions that need to be asked as to why the overwhelming response seems to be celebration to the killing of a CEO. Maybe ask some further questions as to why that may be the case. And then the real fundamental story here is our broken and corrupt and dysfunctional healthcare system in this country, to the point where you could have somebody who, what looks to be, at least as of what we know so far, screwed over to the point where they are willing to try to go and target and assassinate the CEO of the company who ruined their lives, right? Some deeper questions, some deeper conversations that need to be had in this moment. And hopefully, there are some people out there that can learn these lessons.
Woo! Thank you, good politic guy.
Believe me, no one does it
Check
like
out good
me.
politic guy, boys. Check him out. Subscribe. I'm subbed. He's a handsome chap. All right, let's. Oh God, should we watch this? Joe Rogan reveals the real reason why he went full MAGA. Why not? Actually, I might end it here, guys. Because I want to watch The Leftist Mafia. $8:30, huh? Okay, well, I'm gonna end it here so I can play some video games, and so I can watch The Leftist Mafia, boys. Alrighty then. Alrighty then. Alright, guys. That was a fun stream. I love you guys so much. Take it easy out there. Don't be a fucking fascist or Nazi or a weirdo incel. Do not be in the MAGA cult or religiously fanatical in Christianity. Be a woke Christian. Be a socialist ass Jesus. That is what we need. Actually, you wanna know something? Let's keep this going a little longer. I wanna watch something with you guys. By Michael Burns. It's called How Jesus Turned Me Into a Marxist. I wanna see this. I wanna see this with you guys. I wanna see this. I wanna watch this with y'all.
Okay, today I'm going to tell you the story of how Jesus Christ turned me into a Marxist communist super soldier. Okay, not quite, not totally that. But what I want to talk about is how I went from being a person who was Christian in various ways, shapes, and forms that we can talk about, to someone who believed in the principles of a radical leftist politic, one that someone could associate with Marxism, okay? And I hope this is something that some of y'all can relate to, or maybe something that people who don't get the connection between those things could help them understand those a little bit more. And if you don't know me, my name is Michael Burns. I do other stuff on YouTube that's professional. This is just me in a personal...
Hi, Michael Burns. I love your setting. It looks cool.
...capacity. So thank you so much for hanging out. I'm excited to be doing this. So... Let's start with this. We'll do some personal stuff. I grew up in a sort of traditional Irish Catholic household in which we went to Mass and had a vague sense of Christianity around the house, but we weren't radically conservative. We definitely weren't super liberal. It was kind of just like a thing we did, more like a routine or a practice than anything else. But in my middle school years, I started going to an evangelical youth group in, wait for it, Florida, USA, in the pre-9/11.
Oh my God, he was a Florida man. He was a Florida man.
7 years. We'll get back to 9/11 in a second. And, you might say, what attracted you to something like that? And it was like a spirit of inclusivity. I went to this evangelical youth group, and everyone was so nice, and they were so friendly. And there's free pizza and cute girls, and
free pizza and cute girls.
Something about that appealed to me that I didn't get from Catholicism. It felt like it gave explanations for elements of my existence that were confusing. It provided a sort of cosmic affirmation that gave life a sense of meaning or purpose. And again, it meant once a week I got to go to a place where there was free pizza, cute girls, and sometimes decent music. But soon after this all happened, 9/11 happened. Now, I'm not saying they're correlated. I'm not saying my conversion to evangelical Christianity in any way, shape, or form led to the attacks on the World Trade Center. But what I saw in the wake of 9/11 relative to Christianity wasn't great. I saw a presidency try to use Christianity connected to American nationalism to justify acts of violence and war on people on the other side.
That ain't good, boys.
Of the world. I saw people in the communities in which I participated quickly use their faith to justify pretty, I would say, abhorrent nationalist views that were, Islamophobic and racist and sort of bloodthirsty in many ways. It wasn't a good vibe. But I still, despite all of this, ended up going to, a loosely Christian college, the name of which I will not say because I'm embarrassed. But what happened there is, in actually studying the Bible and actually exploring Christianity, I found there's elements of this stuff that I really connected with. And we'll talk about a few of those. So let's start here. This is from the Bible. This is verse Matthew 19:23 through 26. And don't worry, if you're here for the Marxism stuff, we're going to get to that. Okay, but we gotta go there sequentially. This verse says, then Jesus said to his disciples, I say unto you that a rich man shall hardly enter in the kingdom of heaven. It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. I found this interesting.
Hey, guys. Here it is. Here's the first socialism in Jesus Christ. Can I zoom into this? Does that show the whole thing? Oh, I think it cuts off a big part of it. It says, Then said Jesus unto his disciples, Verily I say unto you, that a rich man shall hardly enter into the kingdom of heaven. And again I say unto you, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven of God. Oh.
Because it seemed like there was a critique of the pursuit of wealth, a critique of a sort of materialistic, capitalistic value inherent to the scriptures themselves. I started working for a nonprofit when I was in college that was named after a Bible verse. That verse was Micah 6:8. And I'll read you that verse right here. Micah 6:8 said, He has shown to you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. And this nonprofit I worked for, the people involved in it, for them, what Christianity meant and the core of Christian theology was a seeking of justice and peace in the world right now. What it looked like in the context of that nonprofit was working with immigrant and migrant communities, people who now I guess Christians fucking hate.
For real, dude. They switch up so fast, these Christians.
But doing things that strove after a sense of social justice, and that really connected with me, And then I started reading some theology that got at similar stuff. There's a theologian some of you might have heard of. He was from Duke University. Name is Stanley Hauerwas. Once I gave a paper, and he was the chair of the paper, and he clipped his nails under the table as I gave an academic paper. That wasn't at all weird. That wasn't weird at all. But this is from one of his books. He says, a social order bent on producing wealth as an end in itself cannot avoid the creation of a people whose souls are superficial and whose daily life is captured by sentimentalities. And he's someone who's not a Marxist or a communist or something, but a Christian theologian who taught at the Duke University Seminary or whatever, who put a lot of emphasis on the notion that the politicization of Christianity that we saw in America wasn't theologically valid, right? And in another text, says, never think you need to protect God, because anytime you think you need to protect God, you can be sure you're worshiping an idol. And it's like, whoa, so much of American political and cultural life, especially in evangelicalism, is like, protect God. We got to be God's bouncers. And it's like, guys, he doesn't need you. If you're one of those people watching this, if you're someone who thinks you need to protect God with legislation, you really think some cosmic entity who's all-knowing and all-powerful, created the cosmos, needs you, a guy in a county outside of Wichita, to pass legislation to make sure the kids can't read a book that you decided is a bad book?
I don't think a lot of them really... A lot of people are stupid, so a lot of them don't really realize that they're being used by the politicians. They're being told that is the reason. It's because we got to protect God, but the politicians know that they're just being corrupt as fuck. And they're just trying to get more money and power to the churches and shit.
Come on. I don't think that. And another thing with Hauerwas, and again, I'm reading this in the era of the ongoing, American war in Iraq and Afghanistan. Hauerwas also said something like, well, not something like, I'm just going to read a quote. Why would I say something like? He literally said the thing I'm about to say. As long as it is assumed that war is always an available option, we will not be forced to imagine any alternative to war. Okay? So in our journey right now, I've kind of gone from, secular Catholic kid to evangelical teen to in college exploring ideas of social justice and critiques of American empire and capital grounded in the Christian tradition. Well, my next step on this lovely journey is I started reading about liberation theology. I think some of you might know what this is. It's a school of theology cooked up largely in Central and South America. One of the most famous things associated with liberation theology is this notion of the preferential option for the poor. The idea that the poor and the oppressed and the marginalized need to be ethically prioritized in society. We need to think first of that. And, you know, I was going to go through a bunch more Bible verses, but if you go to one of those Bible websites and type in, like, the poor, because there's, like, 1,000 verses in that friggin' book that are, like, take care of poor people, be good to poor people, blah, 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 blah. So, like, what are we doing now? What are we doing now? But
we are
of the liberation theology movement.
We're clearly not reading the fucking Bible anymore. I can tell you that. I can fucking tell you that. We're not reading no Bible anymore, Sir Michael Burns.
Pretty famous one. And one of the more, I would say, middle of the road ones, not a super radical guy relative to some of the others, is a guy named Gustavo Gutierrez. And, you know, he says this in one of his texts, the poor person does not exist as an inescapable fact of destiny. His or her existence is not politically neutral, and it is not ethically innocent. The poor are a byproduct of the system in which we live and for which we are responsible. They are marginalized by our social and cultural world. They are oppressed, exploited proletariat, robbed of the fruit of their labor, and despoiled of their humanity. Hence, the poverty of the poor is not a call to generous relief action, but a demand that we go build a different social order. Oh my God, is
damn, that guy spitting, Gustavo Gutierrez.
Before I became Marxist, is this where it happened? Is this the moment that the seed got planted? Is this what did it? Yes, kind of. Because look at what he's saying here, right? Like, now you know basic, like, early Marx, your brain's already going like, wait. But look what he says. The last line. The poverty of the poor is not a call to generous relief action. You know, it's not a call to do your good charity stuff and do your nonprofit stuff and once a week do whatever, but a demand that we go and build a different social order. And this hit me hard, folks, this type of thinking, because, like, so many of the responses I saw in American liberal politics, American evangelicalism, and Christianity to some of the horrors happening in the world were basically just like Band-Aids, 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 Band-Aids. And I'm not talking about the Band-Aids that Nelly wore under his eyes. Those were very cool. And Nelly was also popping off around this time. If I had a video editor, I would put a Nelly clip in right here. So, you know, this is the point.
Bro, I'll be your video editor. I'll work for free, Michael Burns. I'll be your Jesus video editor. You don't gotta pay me. Just treat me nice.
As well, where I want to make these videos better at some point.
I'll put Nelly in, boy.
I'm going to do a Patreon thing, which I feel really weird about. But if you want to see me have video clips of Nelly in these things, consider joining so I can afford that, because now I can just afford this. But so many of the ways in which I saw, you know, political or sort of organized responses to political and social problems were just little types of relief, but they weren't looking at the underlying cause of the thing. They weren't criticizing elements of, you know, we could say political economy, economic infrastructure, political infrastructure that create these conditions. A lot of people who are Christian, I think well-intentioned, were like, we should take care of the poor. But the liberation theologians were like, you shouldn't just take care of the poor. You got to ask why people
are people poor?
Why do these conditions exist in the first place?
What is going on in society? What's going on in the systems that we're living in? What is this capitalism thing that we talk about? What is capitalism? What is corporate greed? What is a class warfare? What is class warfare? Why do billionaires lobby? Why is there lobbying? Why you guys gotta ask questions. You gotta teach yourself. You gotta be excited about learning shit.
Oh boy, I hope you guys are having a good one. I'm having a good one. So, you know, next step on our journey here, of course, would be something like Marx himself. Is a quote. I'm sure many of you have seen this one before. It's from his critique of Hegel's philosophy of right, or the introduction to Hegel's philosophy of right, 1843, I'm pretty sure. Marx writes this: religious suffering is at one and the same time the expression of real suffering and a protest against real suffering. Let me stop right there. I didn't really intro Marx Karl Marx, German philosopher and political economist from the 19th century, steeped in the works of Hegel and Feuerbach and a lot of the debates of his time. Someone who never killed millions of people. He didn't do that. But someone who's definitely not a Christian, right? Someone who's not a deeply religious thinker. And you know right now why a lot of people who are Christian hate Marx, or why a lot of reactionaries tell us that his work is incompatible with Christianity. It's because he called religion the opiate of the masses. And what we've seen these days, and this is kind of why I'm making this video, to be honest. I should have said this at the beginning, but I'm not being careful.
Religion is the opiate of the masses, guys.
We're just improvising. Is words like Marx and communism are used as threats against America, democracy, freedom, children, your kids' genitals or whatever. And there's sort of this
woke. It's
built-in
woke.
idea that a lot of the discourse in
The woke mind virus is coming for y'all, yo. Yo, our kids. The woke mind virus is coming for our kids. The woke communist mind virus, guys.
America, that things like Marxism, communism, socialism are antithetical to the tenets of Christianity, Christian theology, or religion more generally. Now, I think that's BS, and I think everything we've looked at thus far kind of proves that to an extent, or at least leads us that direction. But, you know, I was, in my own journey of this stuff, was wondering, like, wow, why are so many of these theological figures speaking kindly, or at least not aggressively, about someone like Karl Marx? And it's because Marx has the same fundamental sort of analytic aim here as someone like Gutierrez. So if we go back to Gutierrez, who says, you know, we got to demand we go out and build a different social order. Marx says religious suffering is at one and the same time the expression of real suffering and a protest against real suffering. Religion is the sigh of the oppressed creature, the heart of the heartless world, and the soul of soulless conditions. It is the opium of the people. And when he says it's the opium of the people, listen, the reason people do drugs, or especially opiates and stuff like that, I mean, there's a lot, but one is like they're miserable. They're hopeless. Look at the areas in the United States of America where opiate addiction is the highest, and you know, put that over a map of poverty and, you know, economic despair and all that sort of stuff. When life sucks and there's not a lot of meaning or hope, you turn to these things. So Marx's point isn't that religion is like heroin and that's bad. His point is that religion is a thing like an opiate that people rely on when the misery of their material existence gives them nothing to hope for. So religion introduces some transcendental hope beyond their material existence that maybe gives them something, you know, to avoid tapping out or whatever. You know what I mean? So Marx goes on to say the abolition of religion as the illusory happiness of the people is the demand for their real happiness. So he's not some friggin' edgelord who just, like, you know, filleted Richard Dawkins or something like that. Richard Dawkins is the worst, by the way. But he's saying that religion is an illusory happiness. It's less than. But it's a demand for their real happiness. To call on people to give up their illusions about their condition is a call on them to give up a condition that requires illusions. It's calling them to give up a condition that requires illusions. The criticism of religion, therefore, an embryo is the criticism of that veil of tears of which religion is the halo. So the criticism of religion is the criticism of the thing that makes us need religion, which are systems in the world that lead to oppression and poverty and exploitation and all those sorts of things, which is why one can say, or one can see this journey of, like, okay, if I'm religious, I'm vibing with Christianity, what am I vibing with? I'm not vibing with the, like, you know, don't jerk off part, which isn't really in the Bible. If there's a Bible verse that says don't jerk off, let us know down in the comments. But the thing I'm vibing with in the Bible is, like, justice, good. Justice for the oppressed, great. Seeking out peace, awesome. War
For real.
is bad.
For
You
real.
know, being
Preach.
open-minded to people that aren't like you, right? Jesus washing the feet of sex workers and
Preach.
stuff like that.
I'll wash your feet, viewer. I will wash your feet. Let me know. I will wash y'all feet. I'll wash y'all motherfuckers' feet. I don't care. I will do that shit. Bring me the crustiest feet, man. I'll watch that. I'll wash that shit so good. I'll wash that shit so good, bruh.
I'm sharing things communally. Book of Acts, everyone shared stuff communally. It sounds like some hippie leftist shit because it kind of is, you know? And it's not just me.
I love hippie leftist shit, guys. I fucking love hippie leftist shit.
Putting this together right now are just the liberation theologians. it's like on one side we have liberation theologians.
I may sound like an asshole. I might come off like an asshole, but I'm a big teddy bear. I'm a softie.
who, via their theological motivation, are like, ooh, I kind of.
This is just my armor because I've been through a lot of abuse. This is my armor from my parental abuse. You know, a lot of shitty relationship, a lot of stuff. It's just my armor.
I kind of see what this Marx guy is saying. But there's also Marxist philosophers and leftist philosophers who then are open to Christianity. And like most recently, people like Slavoj Žižek, Alain Badiou, Jacques Derrida, philosophers like that, led to a wave, at least when I was in grad school. It's kind of trendy to talk about Christianity again. But, you know, it's not just so they can sell books to evangelical college students. There's really something there. So, you know, Ernst Bloch is someone I think of here. German philosopher, wrote a book called Atheism and Christianity. I highly recommend it. I think he has another one that's called like Marxism in the Bible or something, but I'm not going to fact check that. But he says when Christians are really concerned with the emancipation of those who labor and are heavy laden, and when Marxists retain the depths of the kingdom of freedom as the real content of revolutionary consciousness on the road to becoming true substance, the alliance between revolution and Christianity, founded in the Peasant Wars, German Peasant Wars, Thomas Munzer, look it up, may live again, this time with success. Okay? Just skipping ahead, he says, you know, in the far-reaching, inexhaustible depths of emancipation, in those words, could also serve as a motto for a Marxism aware of its depths. He's kind of saying, like, Christians need to realize that you do, if you're motivated to emancipate the poor and create a better world, you need to have an actual analytic tool set to do that work and talk about why the world is so effed. And if you want to be a Marxist revolutionary, you have to think about the depths of your spiritual humanity to motivate that, right? Because I would say in my time of existing, you know, as someone who has been Christian, has been vaguely Marxist and leftist and stuff like that, you know, a critique of the Christian side was always, you're not actually looking at the material conditions that lead to these things, you know? You're not asking what the opiate is necessary for. On the other side, sometimes in leftist or revolutionary thought, there's a lack of emphasis on the human, like the depths of our soul and our own humanity. You know, this is why I spent a lot of years reading someone like Soren Kierkegaard, who's obsessed with that kind of thing. And so I think they are traditions that have something to do with each other. And I also think there is a pathway. And it's not just me. I'm sure this is some of you guys. I meet so many people in my life who are interesting, thoughtful people with radical politics, with empathy for everyone around them that want to create a better world, who have had some religious experience that led them there. And I think there's something important about that. And like I've kind of said before, I said in one of the last videos I did here, is why I don't think we can just throw that out with the bathwater, but also why I think if anyone tells you in your community or your world that there's an absolute gap between religion or Christianity in particular, but also most of the other ones with radical politics, with socialism, with Marxism, they're full of it. They don't know what they're talking about, guys. So I'll leave you here with that. A couple things real quick. Making these videos is not my job. I have another job. Eventually, I'd like to make stuff like this and make it better, you know, make it look better, have some production value to it. Right now, I'm giving myself a rule where I can only take an hour to make one of these on an afternoon where my kid's sleeping. I do have a Patreon set up. Please don't even consider it if you don't have money to give. But if you have money to give and you want to throw some bones my way, the first however many people, I forgot what limit I set it at, who get in at $5 now, I will never lift that. I'll change it to make sure this is there, but you'll always be there even if I do amazing things. But all I want to do is use some of that to maybe make cooler stuff eventually that reflects things I'm into and the style of things I like. But if that's not you, don't worry. If you ever feel like tipping me, I put my Venmo in the thing down there. I asked when people might want to see streams as a poll on the community page. I'm going to try to stream a couple times a week. So please do let me know if there's stuff you want to hear me talk about. And if you do sign up for the Patreon, I am going to put...
Bro, where's your Venmo at? I don't see no Venmo here.
Longer versions of these videos there. So you get at least a little something in the meantime. But thank you so much for hanging out. Do all the YouTube stuff. And, you know, have faith in the cross or in the revolution, whichever one works for you. I'll see you guys soon.
Why the hell is freeze? What the fuck's going on, dude? Jesus Christ. YouTube! Michael Burns. Does he have a Venmo? Michael Burns for 20. Michael Burns, you lied. You don't have nothing. You don't got nothing. Oh my god. There's gonna be so much drama on the leftist mafia, boys. Jon Stewart. And Bernie Sanders. What should we watch, yo? I don't even know. Let's check out the to be. We can watch Bad House Bar for a bit. They invite the Do Not Worry podcast man. I like that guy. Or maybe Mike Figueredo might have something. Let me see. I hope he's looking up at us. We can watch this.
That's Brian Thompson right there, the CEO of United Healthcare. He was shot and killed while outside the Hilton Hotel.
And United Healthcare, of course, one of the largest corporations in America.
Boo!
Headed to a conference for United Healthcare that was expected to happen in the ballroom of that hotel, of the Hilton there in Midtown, when there was a gunman who fired shots about 20 feet away from him as he was approaching that hotel.
We don't have anything on the way of motivation yet. The police are saying that they think it could be a targeted hit, that the gunman was lying in wait. If this was a conference that had been announced in advance, perhaps he then knew the CEO was going to be there. That would explain why he struck at this.
Oh my god. Disgusting. They touched one of the rich ones. God damn it.
Moment.
As you saw, there's no clear indication yet as to what the motive was for Thompson's assassin, and there still isn't at the time that I record this video. Although, if you look at the YouTube comment section for those news reports that we just watched, a lot of people are making some educated guesses. For example, the top 2 comments on CNN's video say, "You make a lot of enemies denying healthcare to people." And another person adds, "Sounds like they denied someone's treatment, they died, a family member wanted revenge, and blamed the CEO." And on the subject of motives, some comments on MSNBC's video echo that same point. What would anyone have against the CEO of a healthcare corporation? Another person adds, "One of the first times that the list of prime suspects would be in the millions." Yeah, and I have so many more comments to show you, but to their point, as journalist Ken Klippenstein points out, United Healthcare denies nearly a third of all claims that they receive, giving them the highest rate of claim denials of all health insurance companies. And as this Ars Technica headline points out, they also use an AI model with a 90% error rate to deny care to people, which means that the Americans who pay
Jesus fucking Christ. Imagine paying your fucking premiums and all the stupid payments just for it to get fucking denied, dude.
Hundreds, if not thousands of dollars every single month aren't getting the healthcare that they're paying for. They're being ripped off. And it's not just bad enough that they're being ripped off. These insurance denials results in medical bankruptcy or death. And as the American Bankruptcy Institute points out, medical debt is one of, if not the most common cause of bankruptcy in the United States. And a report published by the Kaiser Family Foundation estimates that 14 million Americans, that's nearly 6% of all adults, owe at least $1,000 in medical debt, and 3% owe more than $10,000 in medical debt. And if you're wondering why lawmakers aren't fixing the system, Well, it's because these same blood-sucking insurance companies that rip us off and kill us have completely captured our entire government. In fact, United Health spent more than $5.8 million in 2024 alone lobbying both Republicans and Democrats.
What a great fucking system! Wow! They can just do that? No wonder nothing ever changes in this fucking country. Because the rich just buy every fucking politician. On both sides.
Beneficiaries included Kamala Harris, Donald Trump, and both the DNC and the RNC. So they're really making sure to cover all their bases. And as journalist Ken Klippenstein points out again, they're the top campaign contributor to dozens of politicians. So in case it wasn't already painfully obvious, I don't have much sympathy for Thompson, and I don't think you should either. In fact, you should save that sympathy for his victims, because this man became a multi-millionaire by profiting off of the suffering of working class people. And his company is directly and indirectly responsible for the deaths of countless Americans. So I'm going to try my best to filter my thoughts throughout the course of this conversation, because I don't want to end up on the FBI's watch list or something, but just looking at...
Ha ha ha. Honestly, we're probably on the FBI watch list just because we're on the left and we want to reform the system that is this shitty-ass capitalist hellscape of a system.
My eyes. You know what I'm thinking. Okay, we're all thinking it. If Satan chooses to recall one of his demons back to hell, you don't have to feel sad about that and offer your condolences and sympathies and thoughts and prayers. In fact, if it makes you smile, that's okay too. You're not a bad person if you react positively to the death of a killer. In fact, I'd say it makes you a reasonable human being who's justifiably outraged at the cruelty and lack of justice in this world. And guess what? You're not alone, because Americans reacted to this man's death in that same way. Tabitha Chow shared some screenshots of comments on TikTok that speak to just how Americans feel about this. Quote, "I'm sorry prior authorization is required for thoughts and prayers." Another person says, "Sending prior authorization denied claims, collections, and prayers to his family." Was his trip to the ER really emergent? According to his own company, my husband's heart attack wasn't an actual emergency, and we were out of $3,000, full deductible. It's crazy what my first thought was, and then I looked at the comments and realized I'm not alone in my thoughts. I just can't find the care. Maybe if they ask for pre-approval of my care, then after they pay their required deductible, I might be able to supplement some care. I can't even pretend to care. I hope he's looking up at us. Goddamn. There's more.
Bro.
My only question is, did the CEO of United Healthcare die quickly or over several months waiting to find out if his insurance would cover his treatment for the fatal gunshot wound? Sharon Zhang reshared an old post of hers about United Health where she tweeted, "Good news, everyone. If I want to get out-of-network care this year, I only have to pay a maximum of $1 million out of pocket."
Oh
now,
my
I actually want
God.
to stop and explain this for international viewers who might not really know what she's referencing here. So when you buy health insurance in America, you are limited to a network of physicians that you're able to see. If you go out of that network, your insurance isn't going to cover that. And then you've got to pay for that healthcare out of pocket. And it is very, very spendy. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, that doesn't seem like that big of a deal. Just stay in your network. And on paper, that makes sense. But in practice, it's not so simple. Because the doctor's office that's closest to you isn't necessarily going to be the one that's in your network. For example, my health insurance actually went up this year. So now I'm paying more than $900 for 2 people. But if I wanted to buy a more affordable plan, well, the closest doctor in that network that's more affordable is 30 minutes away from me. So in order to keep my primary care physician that I have now and continue to go to the clinic that's closest to my home, I had to eat the cost increase because it was effectively the only choice that I had. Now, that's not even the worst case scenario here. Let's say you're unconscious and somebody calls an ambulance for you. Well, the EMTs, they're just going to pick you up and take you to the closest hospital to get you the care that you need as quickly as possible, as they should. But again, the problem is that the closest hospital might not necessarily be the one that's in your network. And 2 hospitals just miles apart could be in 2 entirely different networks. In other words, you could be fucked over if you have a medical emergency, even if you have insurance. And this happens a lot. In fact, in 2022, 60% of ambulance rides were out of network, which means if they were lucky enough to survive, they'd face financial ruin. So going back to Sharon's tweet, her insurance company is kind enough to cover out-of-network costs so long as she ponies up a maximum of $1 million.
Jesus fucking Christ. This system is fucking cancer, guys. This system's a fucking tumor in everyone's fucking ass. This is fucked up. How does any fucking country run like this? We run like a fucking dumbass. We literally run like we are... I don't fucking know. I can't think of what to say anymore. We run like we are a banana republic on crack. We make fun of places like Cuba. Look at America. America's a shithole. It's falling apart. We complain about places like Palestine and Iran. Bro, look at America. Get the fuck out of here.
After that, they'll cover the cost of everything after that first $1 million that she pays out of pocket. How generous of them. But I've got some more reactions. In response to Thompson's death, this person says United Healthcare has denied his claim for the ambulance ride and ER visit because the claim was filled out incorrectly. That happens. Beth says United CEO should have had his primary care physician recommend bullet removal surgery months ago so he would know if he was treatable today. LOL Overruled says United Healthcare CEO denied access to life. Rachel says United Healthcare almost killed both of my parents. Good riddance, asshole. But let's look at some more comments in response to the news reports on CNN and MSNBC. So under the CNN video, people said, if you die from a preventable disease because your insurance was denied, that's murder too. Was this someone, referring to the shooter, ruined and driven mad by the US healthcare system? The richest country in the world with some of the worst healthcare. Yeah, this was bound to happen. This person says, and how many deaths is the CEO responsible for, I wonder? How many dying and suffering people did he profit off of? Very hard to have any sympathy here. Now on MSNBC's video, people are saying...
God damn, yo, the FBI got some work on their hands, bro. They're gonna have to look around. Look at all these motherfucking potential shooters.
Are we sure that the gunshot wound wasn't a pre-existing condition? Claim denied. And finally, I wonder what he did to that man. I wonder what he and his company did to that man and his friends and family. And just so we're clear, this same sentiment was shared far and wide. Look in the comment section of any video and you'll see zero sympathy from Americans. But it goes so much deeper than that because Americans know that politicians are being bribed by these corporations and CEOs so that way they look the other way when these corporations rip us off and kill us. And some of them are getting a real wake-up call when they're sending out their thoughts and prayers to this greedy CEO, and the comment sections, they're not too kind. In fact, they're pushing back very fiercely and actually calling out the corruption. For example, Amy Klobuchar responded to the news tweeting, "This is a horrifying and shocking act of violence. My thoughts are with Brian Thompson's family and loved ones, all of those working at United Healthcare in Minnesota." Now, as you can see, she was ratioed by the first response, who points out that United Healthcare is a major donor to her, and others made similar statements.
Dumb bitch.
Fort says, "Why don't you feel bad for the thousands and thousands of families that Brian has helped to put in bankruptcy while making millions and millions of dollars? How much does United Healthcare donate to you, Amy?" Quinn says, "Up yours, Amy. You should be investigating that organization for crimes against humanity. That man murdered thousands of people, so don't you dare get on this platform and praise him or offer sympathy for his family, because they didn't have any for anyone else." Now, in case you were curious, she took more than $16,000 from United Health, but she wasn't the only one to face backlash because Dean Phillips also reacted to the news tweeting, "I'm horrified by the assassination of my constituent, Brian Thompson, this morning in NYC and have his family in my prayers." And that response was met with the same sort of replies like this one. "Yes, all your other thousands of constituents just died writhing in pain from denials, but this special boy was assassinated." So as you can see, Americans are fucking pissed. And these politicians need to think deeply about why so many people are reacting to this news in this way. Their condolences come off as tone deaf, especially because people like Dean Phillip and Amy Klobuchar, they don't have that same sympathy for the victims of this CEO. And they never offer those people who lose family members because of these companies the same condolences. When they both ran for president, as a matter of fact, they were against Medicare for All, which is the one policy that would have put an end to this nightmarish so-called...
Yeah, the guy wouldn't have gone insane and shot the CEO if he had fucking health care. Maybe Medicare for All would work. But no, it costs too much money. Paula, the corporation's gonna make money, brother. Brother, that's capitalism.
Healthcare system that we have in the United States. And
brother,
people like them and their ilk, they actually had the audacity to pretend like they were the ones defending us when they were arguing against Medicare for all. And I say this because remember how during the 2020 Democratic Party primaries, when Bernie Sanders was pushing for Medicare for all, and they were screeching because they were talking about how his plan would be bad because it would abolish
communism, socialism, Bernie Sanders, That's literally what they were screaming about, the Democrats. Communism, healthcare for everybody, what? Why don't we get Medicare for all who want it?
Abolish private insurance. Guess what? That's a good thing. That's what made his plan so damn good. We don't need private insurance. No matter how much they tell us we love the private insurance their donors give us and force us to buy, they will never trick us
Medicare
into
for
believing
those
it
who want it.
because we have to deal with these leeches ourselves every fucking year. So you can't convince us that we like something we hate with a burning fucking passion. It feels like gaslighting. Now, there's one solution and one solution only. It's called Medicare for all. Say it with me, Medicare for all.
Medicare
It
for
would
all.
offer comprehensive care to every single American, regardless of their income or location, and it would be free at the point of service. Would our taxes go up in order to fund this system? Yes, but that still means a net gain in money for us, since we'd no longer have to pay what is effectively a private tax to these insurance companies. It would reduce overall healthcare spending, and it would drastically improve healthcare outcomes. But don't take it from me. Jason Lemon of Newsweek explains, an analysis conducted by researchers at Yale University, the University of Florida, and the University of Maryland found that transitioning the United States to a single-payer healthcare system would actually save an estimated $450 billion each year, with the average American family seeing about $2,400 in annual savings. The research, which was published in the medical journal The Lancet, also found that Medicare for All would prevent about 68,000 unnecessary deaths each year. Quote, our study is actually conservative because it doesn't factor in the lives saved among underinsured Americans, which includes anyone who nominally has insurance but has postponed or foregone care because they couldn't afford the copays and deductibles, says Allison Galvani, an author of the study and researcher at the Center for Infectious Disease Modeling and Analysis at the Yale School of Public Health, told Newsweek. That right there is the solution. It is staring us right in the face. But every time we start to have a serious conversation about healthcare reform in this country, corrupt politicians swoop in and they crush that momentum at the behest of the health insurance industry, their donors like this individual. During the 2020 primary, when support for Medicare for All reached new highs and healthcare became the #1 concern for many Americans, well, health industry executives bet big on Biden in its war against Medicare for All, and that bet paid off. The conversation about Medicare for All was tabled once again, but to satiate our hunger for reform, Biden said that he supported a public option. But of course, once he was elected, we never heard about it again. So to go back to the assassination of Thompson, again, at the time that I record this, we don't know specifically why it happened. Could have been a scorned lover. But if the reaction to this news isn't a wake-up call for every politician in America, I don't know what will be. Because Americans are not happy right now. And a revolutionary fervor is clearly bubbling up in this country more and more as people begin to realize that the system is failing them. And healthcare is just the tip of the iceberg. But if politicians don't adjust to this reality and they continue to let billionaires and multinational corporations buy their complacency and complicity with our suffering, I wouldn't be surprised if actual pitchfork mobs start to materialize again. Because people have had enough. They're sick of it. And if this country refuses to do the one thing that literally every other comparable OECD nation already does, which is just care for the sick, Americans are going to continue to see how illegitimate our system is. And to be clear, our system is illegitimate. But we have to name that. It isn't broken. It's working as intended. It's called capitalism. And if that makes you feel uncomfortable, I think that you need to explore why that is. We've all been brainwashed into this system, and we've been told we shouldn't question it. But we should. People, they're not the priority in the system. Profits are. And unless Americans wake up and reject our capitalist system of exploitation, we're all only further enabling our own suffering if we continue to defend this system and support it. But Americans are starting to wake up, and I think that their responses to this news story is definitely evidence of that.
Hey, good job, Americans. All right, y'all, subscribe to the Humanist Report. Hey, hey. Hey, hey.
Hey, look, we've been talking about the right wingers for a while, but obviously we need to address the liberals and what they did wrong often enough to where hopefully they'll hear us. Here's the thing: I don't know if they are hearing us. This is from Kamala Harris. This was uploaded. This is called National Grassroots Call with Tim Walz and Kamala Harris. Now, I didn't see the Tim Walz stuff. I like Tim Walz. I think he was wasted on the Kamala Harris campaign. But I did see some of this on Twitter, and she's pretty much the whole second 2/3 of it. So this is basically, hey, we lost, so what do we do now? And liberals. Let me just get out in front of this and say, nobody even knows what liberals stand for, because it's usually just like capitalism and their own power. And so you have a branding issue. The Republicans, right or wrong, correct or a lie, are obviously successful in their propaganda, right? So you have to have better branding. Guys like Tim Walz should be where the party is headed. J.B. Pritzker, obviously Bernie Sanders has had the playbook out for 30 fucking years on how to win. But the liberals do not have it. Anyway, let's hear what they have to say.
Good afternoon, everyone. To everyone who's on the call, I can't express my deep gratitude to you. Personally, of being on this ticket was the privilege of a lifetime to be with Vice President Harris. But as an American...
Yeah, because that is the last time anyone's going to see you in a fucking campaign ever again. I like you, man, but the stain of the loss of this year is going to stick with you guys.
See you out there and to see the work that you did, to know that you put your heart, your soul, your time, your talent, your treasure into something bigger than yourselves.
Your treasure.
Creepy isn't illegal.
What we do is go on vacation in the Amazon rainforest and get eaten by a panther or something. That was Joe Biden. Joe Biden got eaten by a panther. He's fine, though. I like that he said your treasure. And the Kamala Harris campaign is still putting feelers out for fundraising. Fucking no. I bought a hat. I don't like that now. But I bought a hat. And that's the only money that they got. But the hat, I like the hat. I'm kind of bummed that we can't wear the hat anymore. I'm not gonna wear the hat anymore. But that sucks because it's a cool hat.
The promise of this country, a place where everyone belongs, where no one needs to go hungry or be unsheltered, and where
I'm talking about Jake, bitch.
Okay, so I like your messaging here. So let's actually get that done. We got all the treasure we need right here. Look, he's talking about shelter and like food security. This is huge.
Differences of opinion can be
populism.
celebrated and differences of ideas, and you put that out there and you worked hard for it, and for that I am forever grateful. I also recognize the emotions you're going through, and I share those with you. As the Vice President often says, we weren't running against something, we were running for something, and to watch the joy, the vision, the compassion, the decency that the Vice President brought to this, and that each and every one of you reflected every place we went.
He's just too nice for this shit. I'm sure he believes most of the things that he says.
What are you saying, brother? I don't know what you're saying. I love you, man. I love a lot of your policies, but I don't know what you're saying right now.
Unless the Kamala Harris campaign has told him to say
He's just trying to sell us hopium.
But I think he's so nice that he would say it. He would still say those things.
The caring and the sense of joy.
High Rules Finance, thanks for the 44 months.
I know it's incredibly disappointing now, and look,
he's still the governor.
Candidly, it's a bit scary because there's a very different vision that's being put out there. But now more than ever, we need the light to shine through. We need to be able to be that hope for the neighbor who's really wondering. We need to be that anchor for the folks who are wondering what's next. And each of you did the work. You took time out of your busy lives, and you continued to do it. And it makes a difference. On the campaign trail, I would ask, there will be a day of reckoning when it will be asked, what did you do during the 2024 campaign? Well, I know the people on this call can say everything they possibly could. And for that, as an American, I'm incredibly grateful. And I mentioned that just yesterday, the product of the things the Vice President.
These are nice things to hear, but really what I want to hear is...
Can you please just say, guys, go listen to Bernie Sanders. Grassroots movement. We need Bernie Sanders and grassroots movement. Why can't you just say that?
Where do we go now?
Fought for, and the things that she got done. We had the final pot of money from the American.
Just say like, yo, hey guys, I think we need Bernie Sanders again. Like literally, say that. Just say that, and that would help so much.
Plan that we were able to put $5 million here in Minnesota into food assistance for hungry families during this holiday season. That's the type of stuff you are fighting for. That's the type of things that make a difference. And those things are just as important now as they were before Election Day. And so I hope all of you take care of yourselves, take care of your families, find the place in your community to heal both yourselves and your community. And then when you're ready to get back in this fight, because it continues on. And I know that I've said it often on the campaign trail, I'm preaching to the choir. I couldn't be prouder to be with a choir that's on this call. You did everything that was asked. I also would have to...
Man, I just wish that liberals who are into all this campaigning and grassrootsing and boots on the groundsing, I wish they had a quality message. You know, I wish they believed in stuff that people loved, like making sure that they had housing and health care and access to education and food. It was just give people what they need, man. I know he talks about it sometimes, but I mean, like, when you're out here campaigning, like, hey, we got Liz Cheney, baby. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that was the most useless messaging the Democrats have ever used. We have Liz Cheney. We have Mark Cuban. We have this billionaire guy. We have this other billionaire guy. But we also have Bernie Sanders. He's there. Look, Bernie's there in the corner, guys. He's there. We have him. He's there. But we have Mark Cuban and all these. Look at all these Republican guys. Look, sheriffs. Look, Border Patrol people. Border Patrol people. Wow, bro.
Hey, I think all of us saw the possibility, and I know there's a bit of a feeling of loss.
Sanders Walls, that'd be fucking hard.
Oh my God, Sanders Walls, or like Jon Stewart Walls, or like Bernie Jon Stewart. Oh my God,
that would fucking go so hard. Holy shit, two of the nicest guys you ever saw.
Because we saw what a real leader looks like. We watched a speech on the ellipse the week before the election where Vice President Harris delivered on the best of America. She delivered the best of our better angels. She delivered a vision where all of us mattered.
No.
She is doing it every single day. She is not done with her current job. She's not done being part of it with all of you. And as I said, personally, it was a privilege to be on this ticket.
He's saying all the right things for his career and himself, and he might even feel it, right? He might even really like Kamala Harris as a person. I don't know how she is in real life. She seems... Every criticism that we had about it was right, though. Every criticism that we had about the liberals, like the Democrat base from the jump, it was correct. I'm tired of being right. Let's just win. Let's just fucking win.
It was a personal privilege to be able to become friends with an incredible leader, which someone who was willing to take on some of the toughest fights and continues to do so. And I would just ask all of you to join me in welcoming our Vice President, Kamala Harris.
Yay!
Thank you, Tim. Thank you. Back at you, brother. Extraordinary leader, and we have become lifelong friends. I just, in front of everyone, I want to thank you, Tim. You lead with courage. You lead with heart. You see the people. You care about the people. You believe in uplifting the dignity to which all people are entitled, and you do it and you have a sense of fun when you're doing it. But you are
this is literally the meme that she's doing right now. Oh my God, kid stutter meme, bro. This is literally what she's doing right now, guys. Oh my God, Kamala Harris, listen to this. Listen to this, guys.
We have become lifelong friends, I just, in front of everyone, I want to thank
Look
you.
at his
Tim.
face. Look at his face.
You lead with courage. You lead with heart. You see the people. You care about the people.
You
believe in uplifting the dignity to which all people are
Have you ever
entitled,
had a dream
and you do it with and you have a sense of fun when you're doing it. But you are an extraordinary leader, and obviously the people of Minnesota are very, very lucky to have you there. But you are a national leader and a dear friend. And
Did Auntie Kamala have a few like?
Yo, that's so funny.
Few hot toddies before.
What the fuck? Is she drunk?
She seems a little loose, you know. I don't care. I don't care about it. I don't know. Politics is weird.
And thank you. Noelle, thank you for your work in Pennsylvania and all that you
Yeah, she's having a rough time, yo. She drank.
did for our campaign. And let me just say to everyone on this call, I am so grateful for you. And I'm so thankful to you. I'm thankful.
All right. We gotta finish watching this shit another day. Because I want to see the intro for the leftist mafia. And as soon as that starts and we watch the intro, I'm gonna call it a day and watch this shit. Dismeste. Aridi da karakusha. Woo! Let's go! I'm just typing that in chat. ¡Vámonos! Vámonos, vámonos, vámonos. Vámonos. Empieza esta mierda, empieza esta mierda. I want to watch the intro before I cut the stream. I like their intro. It's very good. Let's do a live reaction. Live reaction to the intro of the majority of the left, not the majority report, of the leftist mafia. I do want to do a reaction of the majority report's fun half intros and all that. That'll be fun. Come on, y'all. Start this shit. I'm gonna see if I can cover the the Vanguard's Dusty interview tomorrow. Hey, this guy sent us a heart. don't know if I did it right. Lust, Sociallust. Just staying live for the intro. Come on. Oh, here we go. I saw some movement. My girlfriend is Russian, so I wish I could learn Russian. I want to learn Russian. That'd be so cool. I would love to learn Russian, guys. I know Spanish, a good amount of Spanish, but there are some big words and some other words that I just don't know about. Pero yo tengo que hablar más español. I want to do content for my Spanish channel. I have a Spanish channel. It's empty though. There's nothing in it. But I want to do content for it. I have some stuff in mind. I got to write a script and stuff because I want to script that content. I want to make it way better than what I make my English content, you know what I mean? But that is something I got to hustle on. Come on, y'all. I'm gonna go grab a snack.
Bullying that's happening.
Cocaína.
It started. I should have got the snacks way sooner.
They stopped
Let's watch this shit again.
Systematic bullying that's happening.
Cocaína.
Hey.
Never had a gun, but it's the wax that the Terminator X spun. Now they got me in a cell cause my records ain't sell. Cause a brother like me said, well,
Born like this, it's born like this, immaculate conception. I transform like this, perform like this, which yells you a new weapon. I don't contemplate, I meditate, then off your head. This that puts against the bed, this that I got realness, I just push, cause it's in my DNA. I got millions, I got riches building in my DNA. I got junk, I got evil that rot inside my DNA. I got off, I got trouble, some heart inside my DNA.
They seem animalistic is what I mean.
No, they're worse than animals.
The woke mob, they ruin everything.
They stopped Ben Shapiro from going to events and speaking. They stopped Ann Coulter from doing it.
I will never surrender even a single inch of ground.
The woke mob!
A pitchfork mob.
You never cave to the mob.
We will never bow to the mob. Ever. No matter what.
Do you see
Hey.
of cancel culture in terrorist groups?
All right, y'all. I love you guys so much. See you guys tomorrow.
We'll see who cancels who. They want you to comply.
In the land of the tyrant, where the sun never sets, we march to the beat of oppression's drums. With a powerful ally, our ruling fist is clenched. We'll trample over the weak. Our kingdom will never crumble. On the